go.
I mean, this is an upgrade.
Constant upgrades over here.
Don't tell G that I said this, but the dude knows how to lay a cable.
He look, it's like he does it for a job.
This is actually. Can people see it? It's behind your laptop.
Hang on,
This is pretty. You can't sort of see it, but the cable's coming out the back of this thing. They're all exactly in order, and none of them are crossing over. It's like, have you ever seen the behind-the-scenes photos of a Rammstein concert?
Yes, I've seen the production of putting that together.
They've just got like 3-phase after 3-phase after 3-phase, kilometre after kilometre of the stuff, all just running through the building, and it's perfect.
Is that normal for a concert?
No, not to that degree. Rammstein is I'm not even a massive fan of the music.
I was gonna say I didn't see,
but
you
I
as a
want to go.
Rammstein
Oh, look,
fan.
I don't mind. Some of it's all right.
Du hast.
Yeah, but I just for the spectacle, for the lasers and the synchronization between pyrotechnics, lasers, music.
I don't know why I saw
synchronized.
this the other day. I think I saw it on Instagram. It was literally that they were walking through the back of the stadium showing this, and all the freight that had to come into the stadium to build the big sound wall
And then
insane.
It's crazy. And then you realize every time they go to a new venue, they have to redesign the layout in terms of how they get power in and out, where the generators are going to sit. All that cabling has to get rethought for every single venue, and it's freaking perfect. It's
and
such
we
a
wonder
joy.
why everything costs so much.
Yeah, well,
I actually love all those sort of like behind the scenes docos where they show you that, like, what are they? It's not a layman's job. I think it's a very specialized job, but those kind of jobs that you don't think of, that you go, wow,
Well,
that you know where that all goes.
a roadie has done their job perfectly if you forget that they exist.
Yeah.
Right? If you notice, then a mistake's been made. That's the general rule of thumb, right?
Yeah.
If you notice the audio, it's usually for a bad reason. If you notice the lighting, unless it's particularly spectacular, like a Rammstein, but if you notice the lighting, it's usually for a bad reason. Oh, that spotlight came on. Why is that on? There's no one there. Or there's a person that's standing in shadow. Why don't they have a light? If you notice a roadie and their job, usually it's because they've made a mistake.
Yeah.
So their ultimate aim is to go completely unnoticed.
Well, I actually think we have a couple of sound engineers that follow us because they rip me apart in the comments.
To be honest, you don't have to be a sound engineer to do that. You just,
To be fair,
have
it
to
is a
have a
common
brain
thread.
cell.
I love that you've bought all your stuff. Should I go and get some Glen 20? Do I need to wear a mask?
Look, you probably need to wear a mask. Probably need to get quadruple jabbed just to protect me from you.
Dude, I'm up to my 12th booster. What are you talking about?
Yes, I am on the anesthetic strepsils. So I do apologise. I'm going to be on these all podcast. I will try and avoid doing the thing into the microphone.
We might make more money if we do that.
Hi, everybody. Do you
I think we've upset a lot of people.
Do you like me now? Yes, my nose is blocked, my throat is sore, and it's a choice between me coughing and wheezing my way through the podcast or me having a strepsil with anaesthetic.
They actually really work. When
they're good.
They're anaesthetic, right? So they make you numb.
Takes about 15 minutes to kick in, but once it kicks in, it's good.
Everyone is sick.
Sure.
Except me. I don't leave the house, so I don't get sick.
Yeah, well, see, that's why I brought it in.
Yeah, so now I'm going to be sick.
Well,
Thank you.
look, it's up to you, but I just thought I'd give you the option.
Right.
You know? Now, can I ask what that is?
This?
That's an unusual looking body that I'm not used to seeing.
This is my good
That's
news.
a video body. That's a video camera body.
This is my new YouTube camera. This is the Canon R50V. So this is a cinema camera.
Yes.
Shoots 4K. It has a built-in fan, and you can put on whatever lens you like.
Detachable lens, full frame or APS-C?
It's APS-C, but it is. Feel how light it is.
Yeah.
It's
so
tiny.
you could travel with the trio of these if you had pancake lenses.
Yeah.
You could travel with the trio of these and have them in your carry-on.
Yeah. So that's a 50 on it.
Which I can't do with my A7C. It's a dense camera. It's a heavy camera.
Yeah.
And it does, I've discovered, have overheating issues.
A lot of them do, particularly. So I don't know about you when you do your YouTubes, but I just let it run and I riff, and I do have the teleprompter, but you stuff up, you mince your words, whatever, and it might take me 40 minutes to get what I want to say out. But with the R5, which is my normal camera, it cuts out at 30 minutes. So I have to get up. I,
on the other hand, have perfect delivery and never make a mistake. And so therefore my filming sessions are much shorter, but I use the camera on continuous output when I'm doing interviews or when I'm doing lives or these sorts of things. So that A7C, I had it in 4K mode and it was exporting in 4K.
Yeah.
And it would overheat after about 30, 35 minutes on warmer days. And the studio gets warm anyway, even on a cold day. You get all the lights running, it gets warm. So
Like
I had
right
to
now?
switch it to 1080p, and I've never had it overheat on 1080p at this point in time. But the point of it is it's a full frame 4K camera, and I can't use the 4K functionality
Because it gets
for
too
more
hot.
than about a half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this, when we do our lives now, this will be my main camera. So we're going to hardwire this, and it will be the camera instead of this, and I'll probably be downstairs.
Yeah, nice.
So so that's my little good news. But my
Well,
other good news, I had a lot of good news this
Okay,
week.
good.
I acquired a 1974 TV.
Hang on. That's older than me.
Yeah. Like it's proper
That's
vintage.
as old as my oldest brother.
Yeah. It's literally from the 70s. It's a color TV.
Is it just as decrepit as my oldest
No.
brother?
It's in mint condition and it actually works.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you just get it from like a deceased estate sale? Some granny went to...
Nah, there was this guy and he actually it was, you know how like when you buy something off Marketplace, there's like a story behind it?
I cannot... Yeah, I've had some of the most unpleasant human-to-human interactions I've ever had have happened because I tried to sell things on Marketplace. I just don't do it anymore.
Selling's different to buying.
Well, yeah, you're just on the other side.
Yeah.
When you're buying, you're the unpleasant human being. Yeah.
I wasn't unpleasant. He put it up for $100 and I was like, I'll take it. I didn't
Okay.
even barter.
Yeah.
But he was in a wheelchair himself and he runs like a massive wheelchair production company where they make
Right.
a lot of mobility stuff. So like think wheelchairs that go onto sand and things like
Yeah,
that.
right.
Really cool. And so I went down there and they were using it as like a prop. And he's like, oh, look, it's just taking up too much space. We were just happy to let it go. And it works. And he had a Super Nintendo hooked up to it.
Oh, nice.
And G's got a Sega Mega Drive, which I've never used,
Yeah,
but he's
yeah,
got one
yeah.
of those. I was like, that'll be fun. But it's for a shoot. That's why I bought it.
We'll talk about nostalgia. I
Yeah.
mean, you've done a beautiful job with the T-shirt with the "Where We're Going, We Don't Need Plans." We've
You can
shown
tell
that to
I'm
people before.
freaking out about turning 40.
You've done a great job with the Star Wars one, which we haven't shown on this podcast. We showed it on the live. I don't know.
bring
Do you
it
have
up.
it?
I will.
I'm
I'll
sorry
get
if
it
I'm
now.
getting ahead of where you want it
No.
to be. And now you're just jolly well going into an old square CRT television with a Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
No, I'm clearly having a midlife crisis. I
Yeah.
think that's what's
Yeah.
happening. Yeah. No, I'm having a midlife crisis. So this is, okay, you know how I told you I was doing that little part of my master's that was going to be going into supermarkets and photographing the laziness?
Yeah.
So I've actually called that Chicken in the Noodle Aisle. That's the name of the
Okay.
exhibition. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I am now doing this other one where I'm taking modern humans in fast fashion and juxtaposing it with old school appliances like that TV and showing that we're actually declining as opposed to progressing.
I see.
Yeah. So just indulge me. That's the new thing that I'm going
right.
to work on.
All
So
right.
I'm going full artist now.
You're going all the way down the arty farty.
Yeah.
I will say, the television that I have in my set that has Topher Field on it behind me, that is now, I believe, 12 years old. It was an expensive TV at the time. It was one of the very first ones that didn't have a big, thick plastic border around the edge of it.
Yep.
It had a nice slim line border. And I bought that because of that fact, and I've been using it in my sets ever since. 12 years old, still going strong. The TV that we have in our lounge room, we got on points because we'd accrued enough points through something or other. So we essentially got it for free. It was a TLC. Is that a brand? Not TX. TX. Gone.
Yeah, TLC.
TLC, yeah. What a load of garbage. It is not even 3 years old, I don't think.
That
and
sounds
it
like an
is
Aldi brand.
on its last legs. No, it was through a JB Hi-Fi, but it's one of the cheapo brands. It's like, oh, the specs look good, but the panel is crap.
Yeah.
The quality, the color reproduction, all that is rubbish. And the thing is, so I went to watch the replay of the Formula One. It took me, I kid you not, 20 minutes to get the TV to behave itself to load KO so that I could watch it.
In this day and age,
It was ridiculous.
everything should be instantaneous. Like,
Well,
should be quick.
it shouldn't be 20 minutes.
No.
Come on.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And it's all just faffing about because the thing doesn't want to respond. You're pressing the button, it's not responding. Or it's responding internally, but the screen isn't changing. So now you have to guess where your cursor really is.
Yes.
It's a really fun game.
Can I interrupt you?
No.
Because I have a new thing where I'm going to run us on schedule.
Oh.
And I know we'll keep riffing and go into 50,000 tangents. But for those who...
She's gone full school mum.
I've gone
She's
full
gone
Nazi.
full school mum. I wasn't gonna use the N-word.
Well, you know what? Everyone uses it these days, so why don't we?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
All right. So can you believe it? We are up to episode 26.
It's our 6-month anniversary.
It is.
Yeah.
That's how long I've had to put up with you.
Well, look, you've had to put up with me for a lot longer than that. I mean, we've been friends for a couple of, well, I say friends. We've known each other
I
for a
didn't have to
couple
see
of
your
years
face
now.
every week, though. In my house.
You're the one who said we should do this in person.
I did.
You know,
I did.
I'm the one, I'm making the sacrifice, doing the driving, doing the hours in the car at your behest.
Anyway, you again, tangent. Look, I have show notes, all right? Can I go through them?
No. No,
Firstly-
I am here to be the fly in your ointment.
Yeah. Firstly, we need to tell everyone to share the show.
Yes.
That is
Share
the
the show.
new price of listening to us.
Okay, job done. What's next?
Yeah, share the show. I have a new word challenge. I thought this would be fun.
Okay.
Because there's a sagacious chasm between you
Oh,
and
there
I.
is I've never seen a more sagacious chasm in my life.
Yeah, I have decided that every podcast we're going to have a challenge.
Okay.
And I've got a book called Words You Should Know to Sound Smart.
Okay.
And I'm going to flip through it and I'm just going to pick a random word.
Sorry, you own that book and you still sound the way you do.
I didn't say I'd read it.
Oh, okay, right. Sorry. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah.
And we have to use that word in the podcast. And the first one
goodness.
to use it is the winner.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's got to be in context.
Yeah.
all
So
that.
you can't just
Okay.
randomly
But you've
say
got
the
an
word.
advantage because you already know what the word's going to be.
Well, I can randomly choose a new one.
Well,
if you
okay.
like.
Now, what's the word? What do you got?
The word is recalcitrant.
Oh, recalcitrant. Everyone knows recalcitrant.
They don't.
Only an old curmudgeon recalcitrant wouldn't know what the word recalcitrant meant.
I was like, you know
I
what?
believe I win.
I think no, that does not win. Or we can use a new word, a ye-old English word that hasn't been used in the last 50 years.
Oh, goodness.
But we'll use recalcitrant because that's the
let's
one I
stick with
planned.
that. Yeah, let's stick with that.
So you have to slip it in. You can't be like, it has to just feel organic.
This podcast is taking a twist.
And I promise you will probably forget the word.
I probably, yeah.
Anyway, so that's our new thing. We're going to teach our audience something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so recalcitrant. And share the show. I'm just going to keep saying that.
Yeah, all right.
All right, so segments today, guys, for you who want to know upfront what we're talking about. It's a very Aussie podcast today. We're being patriotic.
Excellent.
So we're going to talk about topics that really make you guys happy. This is going to be uplifting.
This is a happy Australian news podcast.
Yeah, you're going to feel
I'm
uplifted.
not sure that such a thing is possible.
No.
Have you been paying attention?
Are you ready for the topics?
I don't think I am by the sounds of it.
Jacinta Allan's pay rise. Because nothing fills my cup more with joy.
Happy, joy.
She is now the highest paid premier in the country.
Oh,
and
but boy, she's worth every cent.
Isn't she
Oh,
just?
just amazing. What a woman.
And if that doesn't make you jubilant with joy, Australia's 17 highest-ranking public servants will be paid a combined remuneration packages of up to $16.3 million, in addition to travel expenses and other perks.
Those are rookie numbers. We've got to pump those numbers up.
I am feeling elated.
That's less than $1 million each. How can we possibly? That's why we
Why
get
didn't we
such
at least
rubbish
round it
people.
up?
We get such rubbish people at the top because we don't pay them enough.
Correct.
Yeah.
And further to that, Jacinta Allan's government's plan to ignore the will of the people at considerable cost to legislate a permanent Indigenous voice to state parliament.
Oh, but I'm actually genuinely happy about this because finally the Victorian opposition have an opportunity to actually stand up for something. But we'll get to that later.
You're ruining my joy.
Sorry.
This is happy.
I didn't mean to be serious.
This is happy.
Right.
And of course, we have to tie it out with a couple of really, really enjoyable things. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's wedding, tipped to be about 50 million US.
I am already falling asleep.
No. This is good. This is great. This is salacious. And then finally, to round it all out with actual good news, Jaguar's 97.5% sales drop since their rebrand.
Boy, am I going to harsh your mellow on that one.
Oh, please do. Harsh my mellow. What's to harsh?
No, sorry. It's they've also posted record profits, or the Jaguar Land Rover Group posted a record £3.3 billion profit in the same period.
Is that including the Land Rover brand?
Yes, it includes the whole thing, but there's a reason why Jaguar sales have fallen, which most of the pundits that are crowing about the falling sales aren't giving the background.
Because they stopped the
We'll
production.
get to it later.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm running the show.
Oh,
Damn
sorry.
it.
Well, then don't make me do your job for you.
And I have a brilliant Carlz rant. I've actually planned the rant. But
Does a planned rant count?
well, yeah, because I've been sitting on this for days and it's just building
so
and it
this
will
is-
eventually just...
Right. So you are
Implode.
pregnant with rantiness.
Let's not ever use that word in correlation to me, ever.
All right, fine.
Allergic. All right. So,
Oh, can we add one more topic?
yeah.
Can we talk about EVs on ferries?
Yeah, the one that blew up recently.
Or
They're all
more than
melting.
that, British Columbia is banning EVs that have been involved in any kind of breakdown or accident from going on any of their ferries. And that's a big deal in BC because there's a lot of islands and a lot of ferries.
Ooh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
breaking news came out last night.
Firstly, we need to look at this.
Oh, yes. Yes, you revealed this on Monday night. We do a live on Monday nights for those that don't know. 1 hour long, 7 p.m. Monday nights, the Oddcast live. Join us, be there or be square. This was revealed on the Oddcast, and can I say, I love this more than I should.
Now, this was designed by our third unseen staff member, that is G. Mm-hmm. And he made me, for the first time in my 39 years, sit down and watch Star Wars.
How are we friends?
Yeah, I think we got a lot of unsubs on Monday when I revealed that information.
You've literally sabotaged the entire brand. Our future is ruined.
I apologise, guys, and it was as cheesy and as silly and cringe as I expected it to be.
But that's what makes it so good. Don't watch the other stuff. It's so we're talking just for those that are sitting here going, yeah, but which Star Wars? No, Episode 4, A New Hope, the good ones, right?
That's the one I watched.
Yeah.
And so we had a deal because he's never seen Harry Potter, and he's like, "Well, you've never seen Star Wars." So we shook hands and we had an accord that we will trade movies. He's also not seen Lord of the Rings. Can you imagine?
I don't know how you could possibly find him acceptable boyfriend material.
I remember going to the Lord of the Rings every Boxing Day when they came out and having to be prepared for like the 3.5 hour thing that it was.
And they're still not long enough. It's the extended edits, the director's cuts that you want to watch. I've got them on Blu-ray if you want to borrow them.
I don't have a Blu-ray player. But I do have a new TV from the 1970s.
This is super cool. Now, I have some good news on that front. The test, not for this shirt, but the test printing of your original, the OG, with the DeLorean in it, has now been completed. I don't physically have it yet, but I'm reliably informed by my guys in Horsham who do all the actual work for me. It looks freaking mint and the colours pop like mad.
I am excited to see it.
Yeah.
I think that's going to do well.
I think it's going to do well. I think it should do very well and I look forward to wearing it.
And I think G's stay on tangent.
I think it's so good.
What would you do without me mincing my words? We wouldn't have cool things like stay on tangent.
Thank God for dyslexia. Hey?
Yeah, right? Yeah. And I don't even know I'm doing it half the time. So I'm just a creative genius.
There you go.
Just call me Kanye.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
All right. So our very first one, I need to bring this up. I've got all the controls here now. I feel
You've got everything. You've got this like space age control panel around you here now.
Look at me go.
Yep.
So this is the news, and you started out on this. So everyone remembers this, the new Jaguar rebrand. Can I just go full graphic designer? What in the stop? What I have so much that enrages me about this.
Yep.
Why is there a capital G and a U?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to fair, that U could be a lowercase.
You
but
could
that
argue otherwise, the capital G
is just like, this is an heritage British brand, and you are bastardizing.
Good use of the N and heritage. That's I respect that. You're supposed to use "and" before an H word.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
Oh.
So
I know
sorry.
some things.
I just wanted to.
I'm not totally illiterate.
Yeah, look, if I'm gonna rip you a new one every time you get something wrong, then I should at least acknowledge when you that
Thank
was
you.
good. That was
There
nice.
you go.
Yeah.
So I have some real issues just from a graphic designer
You've got
point of view.
so many issues. Oh, just the graphic design ones. Okay, yep.
Well, that, and then, I mean, we've all seen this. I don't think I need to play it.
Oh, it's so painful. What's painful about this is that it is so uncreative. By the time they released this, it was pure derivative. It's literally just a rehashing
He looks like he's in a concentration camp. He looks so unhappy to be there.
Now, to their credit, Jaguar fired the creative agency responsible for this, and I use the word creative advisedly. The not very creative agency responsible for this monstrosity have been fired by Jaguar. But they're kind of stuck with the rebrand. They're kind of like they can't rebrand now. That's one of those things they can't back down from.
Really? I feel like
they need to,
they
but they
could.
Yeah. So lots of people have been crowing about this collapse in sales, 94 whatever it is percent collapse in sales, and that's comparing April this year to April last year, and that's true. That's a real stat. That did actually happen. Jaguar announced that this is a massive rebrand. This is not just putting a different badge on their cars. They're releasing all new cars, discontinuing all of their existing ones, retooling all of their factories, everything. This is not something that they normally do on all their products at once. Car companies will retool and re-release a single car to keep all the other production lines running. So this is a really big moment for Jaguar. I think they've got it wrong, but I will defend them on this sales side of things. most of their products are no longer available.
Yes, it does say that in this
Right?
article.
It's not a case that no one's trying to buy their cars. It's that actually they're selling every car that rolls out. They're just not rolling many cars out. A lot of people also will be waiting for all the new stuff. So there's plenty of Jaguar fans out there, and there's plenty of people that will find that kind of nonsense appealing.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of idiots in the world. We've established that fact.
I'm not going to, like, I don't hate the design. Like, I know
Yeah.
it's a concept car and it's an EV. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
What I hate is the brand.
Yeah.
I hate what they've done. And what they did was something that was seen to be on brand in the moment. It was very fashion focused, but it was already too late. Woke is already dead.
Yeah,
So what
correct.
they've gone, they've
Correct.
done the diversity hire, they've had the ageist thing in there, they've
Yeah.
done all these crazy colours, and you've gone from that beautiful established brand that
Mm-hmm.
has heritage to it, and you know the Jaguar, the actual animal, is gone.
yeah.
They've always been on the front. It's like
So
taking away the
I-
spirit of ecstasy from a Rolls.
The first real world car I ever fell in love with was a friend of mine's. It was a 4-door Jaguar. It wasn't even one of the super cool, sexy ones, but it had the leaping Jaguar on the front.
Yeah.
And that made it instantly the coolest thing that there ever has been. And I've been a Jaguar loyalist ever since. I nearly bought an XKS some years ago, or an X. Anyway, one of their 2-doors. I can't even remember exactly which model it was now. One of their old school 2-doors, XJS, I think it was. And I would have proudly owned and driven that car. But what they've become now is this really weird nether brand where they've abandoned all of their heritage, which, remember, heritage can't be faked. You've either got it or you don't. And if you've got it, you need to leverage it, because once you let go of it, you're not getting it back.
Yeah.
They've abandoned all of their heritage to become something that is actually remarkably bland in a world full of woke already, yes, but also in a world that is stuffed full of cut price EVs.
Yeah.
If you want an expensive EV, you've already got the Polestar option. Volvo have already kind of jumped on there. All the other established marques.
BYD, which I feel like they're everywhere now.
That's cheap Chinese crap.
Yeah.
That's,
They've
you know,
exploded. They're everywhere.
literally, yes. Yeah, that's...
I'm just trying to find an image. So my grandfather had a Jag, and I think it was an E-Type. I'm trying to find an image of it. But yeah, and it was exactly that. It had, maybe it wasn't an E-Type. It definitely had the Jaguar on the front. It was a sedan.
I can understand Jag needing to modernize, needing to get away from the stuffy, middle-aged white guy who's overweight and arrogant, and to get that image out of their brand. They tried that with the big one, their big sort of their S-Class competitor. I'm forgetting all the Jag model names now.
Well, the F-Type was pretty cool. That
The
was
F-Type
a cool
was
looking
cool,
car.
but funnily enough, so the Jaguar heritage is in this beautiful blend of ride and handling. They were this car manufacturer who could make a sports car that handled brilliantly and still rode well.
Yeah.
The F-Type had terrible ride.
Did it? Is
Really
that
stiff
their
suspension.
sporty one?
There was a sporty one, yeah.
This guy.
Really stiff suspension. Not a particularly enjoyable car to Grand Tour in.
Okay.
It rode like a hardcore sports car, but it's
Yeah.
not a hardcore sports car. It's a Grand Tourer. It should
This
be
is meant to compete with like your Maseratis.
well, it should be a budget Aston Martin.
Okay.
Right, a Jaguar 2-door hardtop coupe should be a budget Aston Martin, and it just wasn't, unfortunately. And look, I love the Jaguar brand, but their big XF, I think they called it, the big one, meant to be their limousine. I sat in one of those. A friend of mine was looking at getting one. He's older. He's in another generation older than me. He's got a bit of money. He's looking at getting one. Took me shopping. We sat in it and went, this is a horrible interior.
Yeah, okay.
It's a cold, it's what you would expect from a modern Volvo,
Yeah.
right? Which is fine if you're a Volvo shopper.
Yeah.
If you're into that kind of Scandinavian minimalist aesthetic.
Yeah.
If you're a Jaguar shopper, you want that little touch of luxury. You want that touch of
You want
handcraft.
finish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want finish on things. Again, think budget Bentley, budget Aston Martin. That's
Yeah.
what you're shopping for.
You know who does this really well? Rolls. Rolls-Royce
Rolls,
do
yeah.
this incredibly well. I mean,
Yeah.
rappers want Rolls-Royces because A, they're one of the most expensive cars you can buy. They're aspirational.
Yeah.
But Rolls-Royce looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like particularly a Phantom or a Ghost. I don't really like is it the Cullinan?
Yeah, that's the 4-door.
The SUV?
So a friend of mine in Melbourne has a Rolls, one of the big 4-doors. Gosh, I'm terrible with cars. I think I must still have a cold because my brain is
Yeah,
foggy.
you've been hanging out with me too long.
Yeah. One of the really nice full-sized Rolls. One of the ones, it's got the umbrellas in the doors and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
I
And
think they all have that, don't they?
you never touch the door. You wave your hand and it opens itself, and then you sit in there and you wave your hand somewhere else and it closes itself. And
Yes.
all of that sort of nonsense going on.
Fancy.
Beautiful, beautiful car and really lovely place to be. I do still find myself choking on the price. I just can't bring myself to believe. I mean, unless the exclusivity is part of the point, unless the statement of I can afford it and you can't is part of the point.
That's the whole point. Yeah.
You know, and I'm not wired that way. Even if I had the money, I'm just not wired that way. So it kind of doesn't make sense to me. But for me, I would stump up the money on a Bentley because something that big that can move that fast and handle that well.
Well,
right,
you're
it's
not meant
still
to
a driver's car.
drive your own Rolls.
Correct. In
That's
a
the
Rolls, you're the
point.
passenger.
Yeah.
In a Bentley, you're the driver. And so I would go as far as a Bentley, which a lot of people would view as excessive anyway. And to be honest, I can't afford it right now. Help a brother out. But if I was a squillionaire someday, yeah, I could see myself buying a Bentley one day for the purpose of enjoying the driving and the experience with such a ridiculously heavy, large, opulent, luxurious thing that can move that fast.
Yeah. Adrian Portelli hotted up his Bentley. He lowered it and did all the things. It does look pretty cool. It's not my go-to, but that's...
I always barrack for the Bentleys when they do the 12-hour endurance races at Bathurst.
But let's just sideline that for a second and get into our wonderful story about old mate.
Oh, yeah. Gosh.
No wonder she's got nothing to worry about.
Is that how many dollars per second Victoria's going deeper into debt? Is that what that number is?
I've got that number and we're going to get to that in a second. But that is her new package. So I'm going to read you the highlights.
It's good to be king, isn't it? We need a no kings rally in Victoria.
You know, I tell you what, for a hardworking woman, she sure does have it easy.
This is why they care so much about the little people.
Yeah. I can see this is why she's so worried about youth crime.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's right. That's right.
All right, so I'm going to read out a couple of facts to you. So, where are we? I didn't even read the stuff about Jaguar, but honestly, who cares?
Yeah.
All right, so Jacinta Allan has cemented her status as the nation's highest paid premier, while the base salary for the Victorian backbench MPs, so the people who don't have any real responsibilities, is $212,000.
Still good.
Right. And I'm going to read you all this and then we'll discuss it because this is kind of why I think the Liberal Party don't really need to try. Yeah. So opposition leader Brad Batten's pay packet is now more than $409,000, including expenses. This is the opposition leader.
Yeah, wow.
He's just $100K behind Jacinta.
Yeah.
Right? Why would you want all the responsibility of being premier?
Right,
You're getting basically the same pay packet.
Sniped from the sidelines. Yeah.
Right? And honestly, I actually think this is why we see a lot of complacency in our leaders. Anyway, backbench MPs with no extra responsibilities will see their pay jump from $205,000 to $211,000, with allowances increasing by 2.3%.
Gosh.
So, as you guys know, there is an independent tribunal.
Oh, yes, so independent.
And they have said that their increase was less than the 3.5% uplift in the minimum wage set by the Fair Work Commission. So nothing says fair to me than the person who gets the absolute minimum wage getting a pay increase of 3.5. So naturally, we need to up the people who are highest paid in the country.
Oh, that's right.
By the same. That makes sense.
And because it's done in percentage terms, it's a lower percentage, yes, but the absolute number of dollars of the increase is massively more.
But hang on.
On to salaries where they didn't need an increase to start with.
I have not finished making you mad.
All
right. So the irony of this is that the tribunal was particularly mindful of the government's wage policy, the current financial position of the state of Victoria, and recent annual movements in wages and prices in Victoria. Because, of course, you need to take that into consideration.
Yes.
A quote from the tribunal is, "In making adjustments to the value of other work-related allowances for MPs, the tribunal gave particular consideration to the relevant price movements in the Victorian economy." And as you guys are well aware, but I'll state it here just so we know it, in its May budget, the Labor government confirmed the state's net debt would continue to climb to a record $194 billion by 2028. And by that time, it would account for a quarter of Victoria's overall economy, and Victoria would be paying $28.9 million a day in interest alone. That is more than most of us will earn in a lifetime, and we're paying that per day.
That's a lot more
just
than most
in
people
interest.
In a lifetime. Yeah.
That is insane.
So there was a time when politicians didn't get paid at all.
Was it?
It was voluntary. And this is relatively early in the Westminster system in the UK. Politicians did not get paid at all. And I believe that the same was true in the US to start with as well.
Yeah.
It was a voluntary thing that you did. And because you needed popular support and you needed to be financially independent, it was pretty much reserved to wealthy people, landowners, successful business people, lords in England and these sorts of things. The objection was that essentially it excludes people who aren't independently wealthy.
Okay.
They can't run for politics. Their voice doesn't get represented. They can't, right? They don't they don't get to participate in politics in the same way. And there's some truth to that. But I would flip that on its head and say by making them some of the best paid people, we've ended up with essentially mediocre people that couldn't make it in the private sector. It's too competitive. They have to be too productive. They have to do real work. Instead, following this pathway, and whether it's senior bureaucrats on a couple of $100,000 a year because they oversee very big departments, or whether it's politicians, they're earning relatively obscene amounts of money with relatively little accountability and oversight. And it's become its own career pathway. And I'm not sure that that's any better than the problem that we had before, where it really was only the rich and the wealthy people that could actually get involved in the first place.
Yeah. I'm going to continue on this path of making us very angry because...
I thought you said this was a happy podcast. What happened to the happy? The clouds have come in and it's raining on me. Why does it always rain on me?
You know, we got copyright striked last week for that Trump thing I played.
Oh, for the music in that?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I didn't know, but I thought the whole bomb Iran,
bomb Iran.
I thought someone had made that with AI to a Beach Boys, but no, that was a 1980s song.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
I assumed it was a modern...
That's what I didn't realize we get copyright strikes for that. So I had to edit it out of the podcast.
Oh, you guys missed out. You guys missed out on the music.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like so hesitant to play audio now because we keep getting like I'm learning all the ropes of YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, so to conflate this with what we've just talked about, let's zoom out to a national level, right? So Australia's 17 highest ranking public servants will be paid combined packages of up to $16.3 million. And I do have a really interesting graphic here. So we'll go through this together. This is from The Australian. I have now been giving my money to Murdoch and Fairfax for this podcast and I'm outraged by it.
I do the same, yes.
Yeah, but there's no way around it. They're all behind bloody paywalls. So... to give you guys some context, and we'll discuss this because this is kind of the theme of today's podcast. We have had 2,517,900 public sector employees up till June, which equates to nearly 1 in 5 workers in Australia being a government employee as the total... Workers. As the total wages bill skyrockets to $232 billion annually. What's the GDP of Australia?
Cheeseburger.
That went up my nose.
Not enough to have 1 in every 5 people leeching. And that's just the ones that are directly employed. Then you've got all the NDIS workers and other forms of subcontractors and all the government contracts.
No, that includes the 2.5 million includes NDI. So I'll go into that. Sorry. This is why I subscribe and get the things now. The details. So no one can fact check me. The Commonwealth government has 365,400 employees. The state government, so collective across the whole country, 1,939,100 employees. Local government, so councils, 213,500 employees. And so the states accounted for 77% of the public sector employment, which includes frontline workers like nurses, teachers, and police. So, you need to take that into consideration. It's not just bureaucrats.
No, it's not just bureaucrats, but yes.
And then nearly all of the job growth that has come from non-market government aligned sector, where the numbers of jobs have expanded by an extraordinary 11.6%. But much of this job growth is in relation to the National Disability Insurance Scheme, so NDIS. In comparison, job growth across Australia's market sector has stagnated, growing by 1.1% over the same period.
My lawn mowing guy, who had a Jim's Mowing franchise, sold the Jim's Mowing franchise to become an NDIS support worker.
That's insane.
And make a truckload more money.
That is insane. I know,
and I can't get mad at him.
No.
Right.
Well, we're at that point now where it's like every man for themselves.
Yep.
And you can't get angry at people who are exploiting the loopholes. Like just because they're doing it and you didn't see it first, or, here's the thing. When we went through COVID and there was those opportunities to draw down your super and there was opportunities to get the subsidies from the government and things like that. Yeah. There were people who took it, like most famously was the guy who owns Harvey Norman. He took all the JobKeeper.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it was proven
Jerry
that
Harvey?
Jerry Harvey,
Yeah, okay.
and it was proven that he didn't need to.
Right.
And they alleged that he used it to buy his Gulfstream. Do you remember this story?
No, I don't know.
And they were saying
I think I was a little too busy getting hit in the head with police batons at the time.
Yeah, sorry, weren't we both? I was too busy like drowning in debt.
Yeah.
And essentially what they were saying is that they had to pay it back. And of course they never did.
Right.
So you can be a billionaire like Jerry Harvey, take money from the government and see no repercussions. But if you dare pay your taxes late, like you get fined for it.
Yep.
And yeah, so there's a level of people just going, you know what? Fuck it. I'm taking the money anyway.
I can understand that position because when you live under a government that is recalcitrant, then it saps any desire that you have to try and live well. By the way, you never actually explain what the word is. So there's people, do you have a definition there?
I can Google it.
Because there's people
Yeah.
listening
There we
who are
go.
like, okay, he used the word. What does he mean?
Recalcitrant. Here you go. This is the Oxford definition. Oh, sorry, you guys can't see that on the screen. Hang on, let me just. There you go. Having an ostensibly uncooperative attitude towards authority and discipline.
Yes. Now, the government is a recalcitrant because it's actually supposed to be a servant. We are meant to be the ones in authority. They are actually having a very how do they define it? Not unresponsive.
Ostensibly uncooperative.
Uncooperative. They are uncooperative with the Constitution, with common law, with common sense, with basic duty of care and all of the things that should apply to anyone in a position
I think this is
of
across
authority.
the Western world. This is
Oh, yeah.
a accumulation of low incentives to bring in people who are actually skilled or people who are arguably much more intelligent. And what you have is mediocre people who are really good at playing those games, like those faction games, and then they rise to the top, not out of merit,
No.
but out of playing the game.
Because someone always ends up in that spot.
Yeah.
Someone always ends up in that position.
And they end up there by default,
Correct.
not by...
Because they successfully tore down their competitors.
So-
So if we can get back to my little victory lap, when we live under a recalcitrant government,
If I had little sound thing, I'd be like, yay.
we have no incentive to try and live well ourselves, to try and be productive, to try and even be cooperative with their authority, legitimate or otherwise, when they're not actually being respectful towards the authorities and the people that they serve, which is us. We have no incentive to be respectful back. So what we're watching now is we're actually locked into a bit of a vicious feedback loop here, where because the government is living recalcitrantly and so disrespectfully towards the people that pay its bills and pay the taxes and all the rest of it, people are now becoming very disrespectful in return, and this is a vicious downward spiral.
Yes, this is the road to Venezuela, and I'll get to that in a second. I just thought I'd point out some of this. This was a really good graph, or like little graphic put in the Australian. So these are our highest paid public servants. So you've got Stephen Kennedy, who is the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. He will be in the next year on a pay of $1,035,690.
So this is now going federal. So we've
we've
switched
gone federal.
We've gone federal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's at a pay
insane.
increase of just under $25,000.
I mean, basically running the Prime Minister's office, which is an administrative role. I mean, okay, you're busy. I get that.
So, okay, he's number one. What does he actually do for that $1 million? Like, what would his KPIs be? What is his job description?
Look, I will defend the job in the sense that it would be worth six figures. It would be a pretty high stress job.
So he's paid more than the
He's paid
Prime
more
Minister.
than the Prime Minister, I know, which is insane. It would be worth six figures. It's not worth seven. But he is essentially Australia's most under the pump EA. He's having to coordinate all of the Prime Minister's activities, but not just the Prime Minister individually, not just at an EA level.
Hang on a minute. So if he's an EA, he would have his own staff under that.
Oh, but yeah. So
he's
the office of
overseeing the staff.
Yeah,
who
correct.
run
The
it.
office of the Prime Minister is a big Prime Minister and Cabinet. That's a big office. So all the press releases, all of the policy announcements, all that stuff, it's all coordinated out of there. If you want to get a depressing inside look, have a look at the Hollow Men. That's I think it was ABC satire, based in I think the Prime Minister, the office of Prime Minister and Cabinet in a fictional government. And they spend entire episodes arguing over what colour of tie the Prime Minister should wear when they make a particular announcement, which is tragically not as far from the truth as you would like it to be. I will concede that Stephen Kennedy would be extremely busy and under a lot of pressure. And in the corporate world, a high-level EA running a department under that kind of pressure would be worth six figures.
I have no
not
issue with
seven.
a six-figure salary.
Yeah.
$1 million?
Yeah.
seems excessive. The next one down, we have Jenny Wilkinson. She is Treasury.
Okay.
So she's under Jim Chalmers.
So she's a senior bureaucrat as opposed to an elected politician. I don't recognise her name, so I'm assuming she's not a politician.
She replaced Kennedy.
Yeah, so she would be the senior bureaucrat in charge of the Department of Treasury.
Right. So I'm assuming she's getting paid more than the treasurer himself?
I would assume so in this case again. So understand the way that remuneration works for bureaucrats is tied, I believe it's still true. I might be a little bit out of date, but it was true a few years ago, tied directly to basically the size of the department, the number of people they have in the department. Now, this creates a couple of really perverse incentives. So you as a bureaucrat, you want to not achieve your goals so that you can say, we're under-resourced, we are understaffed, we need more people.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got more people. Oh, hey, that pushes me up into the next category, the next bracket. I get the pay rise now. So they're not enterprise bargaining at an individual level. Jenny's not walking into the office going, well, I think I should be paid this. She's paid according to the schedule, and her level is set by the number of people in the department, the fact that she runs the entire department, etc.
This is infuriating. All right, so the next one we have 983, 910,000.
Yep. So these people would have slightly smaller departments, I presume is the reason for that difference.
Yeah. So we've got Department of Defence, Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. There's a few other people, education, employment, foreign affairs. And then...
Now, these people, can I say, these people are the swamp.
Yeah.
This is the swamp. These are people who 20, 30, 40 years ago said, I'm going to go and work for government. And they've maneuvered their way through department after department. Watch Yes Minister. Again, it's written as satire, but it's truer than you want it to be. Watch The Hollow Men. Watch, what was that one with the Department of Infrastructure in Australia? Another kind of black comedy. Anyway, it'll come to me. These people are not rewarded for achievement. They're rewarded for knowing the rules of the game and playing it well.
Yes. And I think that's, again, my frustration. If any of these people were employed in the private sector, they'd all be fired.
They would be considered mediocre at best.
Well, in private sectors, obviously you have KPIs to meet, and if you don't meet them, out you go.
Correct.
Because if someone else is signing your checks and you're not you're not meeting those deliverables, then
but more to the point, at the end, you in a private sector department head position, you're accountable to your KPIs, but ultimately the company that you're working for is accountable to the market.
Yeah.
If you're not creating things that the market views as valuable and desirable and worth the money that you need to charge in order to recoup your costs, then you go out of business. Bureaucrats, they object. Oh no, I work hard. I push paper all day long. Do you know how hard it is to be in so many meetings and to keep track of all these things and blah blah blah? Right? They insist. Oh no, we work hard. I'm taking work home with me. And doing emails on my computer until midnight every night. Don't care. I don't care how busy you are. How productive
what have you achieved?
What have you achieved that is recognized by the general public as being valuable?
Yeah.
That's the question. And that's the question that no bureaucrat wants to answer. And they say, oh, but it's different. It's different when you're in government. Yeah, I'll bet it is.
Was it Rand Paul that made the suggestion, or was it Elon Musk that was saying that you should have your pay docked if you didn't meet... What was that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. He just wanted to... It was just 5 questions, I think. What did you do this week?
That was Elon Musk. No, this was about like your salary should be dependent and your ability to be able to be eligible for Congress again should be relative to what you achieved and has the GDP of America grown. So if it's declined, you don't get a chance to go back into Congress.
I've talked about this before where, in my opinion, every one of those senior bureaucrats and every politician should have their pay docked by, let's say, 50% if the budget runs in deficit when the state or country or whatever was already in debt.
Yeah.
If they're already in debt and they run a deficit and push further into debt, their pay should be halved.
So I'm going to go on a rant in a second, but before we do that, I do want to juxtapose this to the Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez situation. Because what we have is the commoners, us merely, middle-class folk.
Us common folk, yes.
The taxpayers who are seeing this and seeing that these people are getting a pay increase where most of us are probably getting reduced hours, getting laid off, or we're seeing, I work in the freelance industry, there aren't many commissions coming out at the moment. Everyone's feeling those purse strings tightening up. add that to all of our overheads are increasing. And G and I say this all the time, you know, I'm earning more than I ever have, but it's not covering.
I've never been poorer.
Yeah. And even yesterday, so I've talked about this before, my subscriptions, right? This is just to do my business.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read them out to you. So I now pay almost $1,000 in subscriptions a month. So in that, I've got Milanote. I've got some AIs that I use for uni. So I've got Stability AI, Runway AI, and Midjourney. ChatGPT, Adobe, Canva. I have a Premium X subscription for the podcast. YouTube Premium for the podcast. I use a thing called Medium. It's a journalism, or it's like a blog. I've got The Australian, The Herald Sun, The Age. I've got Prime, Stan. Then I've got Envato. I've got Buzzsprout, which I use for the podcast. I've got Pixieset, which I use for my photography. I've got Studio Ninja. I've got Zero. And every single one of these has emailed me this month saying things are going up. And it's now, all of those subscriptions, there's probably more. That's just the ones that I've remembered for now. I need those to do what I do. And that's $1,000 just to have the tools. And Adobe just came out recently saying that they're increasing it by $50 a month.
Which is insane. $600 a year. Absolutely nuts. So I don't use Adobe anymore.
You cancelled
I've
it?
switched everything across to CapCut now.
Yeah.
I will probably need to get a Canva subscription as well.
Canva's brilliant.
It is. It's a good program, and it does do things that CapCut doesn't. It is just better at certain things. So I'll probably begrudgingly have to do that. I've got a few of the other ones that you mentioned as well. I am Amazon Prime because there's so much back and forth. I mean, I sell books on Prime anyway, so there is a different kind of relationship there. But we get so many different things delivered to the house where we are because you can't buy it where we live. We live in a major regional centre.
And not only that, it's frustrating. Like I went to, where did I go the other day and needed something? Oh, I don't have that in stock. I can order it in for you. I'll just buy it online, mate. And then it comes to my house. And I know that hurts small business. I understand this is like a vicious cycle. But, you know, as much as I'm not particularly a fan of Bezos, brilliant what he did.
Well, I've had stuff delivered that you know, I can't fit into my own car. So I go to a store and they go, okay, well, yeah, here's the price. Okay, look, I could probably get it cheaper online, but fine, whatever, I'll pay it. Oh, it'll be $200 delivery.
Yeah.
Excuse me? So I go to Amazon, find that it is cheaper online, and it gets delivered to me for free, despite the fact that I have to stick it in a truck from a capital city. Comes all the way onto my doorstep, something that couldn't have fit inside my car.
Yeah.
And I've paid less than what I would have at the brick and mortar. Now, I want to support the brick and mortar.
Same. Yeah.
Like, I value the fact that they exist. I value that community and that ecosystem that exists around me because these bricks and mortar stores exist. But come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the problem with Bezos. He's made it so that you can't compete.
Yeah. And he's made his money because he made our lives better. And people whinge. Their brains cannot handle this concept.
Didn't his net worth double over COVID, though? That's when things really went through the roof.
But is that his fault? Like, I knew a guy who had a brick and mortar bike shop and a different guy who had an online only bike shop. Guess who benefited during COVID, right?
Yeah.
But it's not his fault.
Well, that's the what am I trying to say? The ability to adapt to the market, right? So you have a look at, you know, the old example is always like Kodak Film, and then Netflix versus Blockbuster. Like, I mean, you got to adapt with the times. So we're now moving into AI. We're moving on to we've been in online for a while now. If you aren't able to somehow be able to service your customers through online as well, then
there is though a distinction between adapting to technology and market expectations as they evolve naturally versus adapting to government rules that have been changed arbitrarily. Those are two different things. But yeah, Bezos made an absolute fortune because he figured out how to give us what we didn't yet know that we wanted, which was, you know, 2-hour delivery. If you're in the US, you know, 2-hour delivery. We showed up my first exposure to this. I was traveling with my wife. It was 2016. My firstborn son was 4 months old. We arrived. They had our friends had an airbed blown up and ready to go for us. It went flat over dinner. And we went back into our room after dinner and went, oh, airbed's flat. We came out and told them. They said, oh, no worries. He jumps on his computer, click, 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 click. We'll have another one for you by the time it's bedtime. Sure enough, within the hour, doorbell, brand new airbed from Amazon Prime, sitting there, and they just plugged in their little electric thing and brand new airbed.
Yeah.
In less than an hour. Essentially, what happens in the US is we don't have it yet in Australia, but because of the economies of scale, they do in big regional centers in the US. You have a cupboard full of every single thing on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's essentially what Jeff Bezos gave to the American people. Of course, he's a freaking billionaire.
Yeah. I have no issue with what he did with Amazon. The reason I want to bring up the wedding, I've got a photo of the newlyweds there. There they are. Gorgeous. So I've really enjoyed the discourse around this.
Right.
I have no skin in the game. I don't know these people.
Sure.
You know, like any public figure or celebrity, you know, we can feel free to have a bit of a goss around them. So I thought we'd do that. And then I'm going to get into the darker side of things. So they got married in Venice and they've been rumored to have spent, you know, $50 million or whatnot. You know, good on them. They're happy. They're billionaires. They can do what they want. However, obviously it has pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah.
So there were protests in Venice because Venice is a city that's suffering from mass tourism, or so they say.
Yep.
And it's also a city that is sinking.
Oh, no, we're making all of this money off of you. Will you please go away? Yeah. I don't have a lot of sympathy for that.
No, I don't either. But all right, I'm going to read my little facts.
Sure.
Right. So they had somewhere between 200 to 250 guests. They basically hired the city for the weekend. Some of the biggest names in Hollywood and some of the most well-known personalities were in attendance. Some of their closest friends, of course. So their nearest and dearest include Kris Jenner and the Kardashian sisters, Bill Gates. That one I can get. You know, tech titans. Yeah, makes sense. Leonardo DiCaprio. How often do you reckon those two hang out?
No idea.
Yeah, I don't reckon a lot. Orlando Bloom, if you know who that is. Oprah.
Sorry, Legolas from Lord of the Rings, if I know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
Come
Sorry.
on.
You don't know a lot about pop culture, so I just assume you're ignorant.
If they're in Lord of the Rings, I know about them.
Okay, apologise. That's fair. I'm also think of him in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I did enjoy him in that. Yeah.
Oprah and a whole lot more. And there was a bunch of entertainers there. So apparently Elton John and Ellie Goulding performed.
Yep. Okay.
Elton John's like, he's
getting on. But
Yeah.
Ellie Goulding and Elton John did that duo. See, I know something, but I can't remember the name of the song. Cold, Cold Heart.
Ah, yeah.
That was an Ellie Goulding. And wasn't that Ellie Goulding?
I thought, wasn't that Britney Spears? Didn't he do one with Britney Spears?
He may have done.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He's fairly not irrelevant, but like I think he's done.
He's an icon. He's
an icon.
done. But I mean, the Rolling Stones are still touring. They're done.
Yeah.
They're well and truly done.
They are pickled inside. I am absolutely convinced that Keith Richards just has a body of formaldehyde.
There is,
and everything's just like just in there. He won't actually die. He's immortal.
Well, you know how they used to embalm bodies. They won't have to do anything with theirs.
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
already sterile.
He's actually those drugs have actually done the complete opposite.
Yeah.
But the conversation around this is obviously a couple of things, and this sort of is the precursor to my rant. So, you know, a lot of the commentary is, do they even have real friends? You know, it's like they've flown in the guest list, and they probably have. I've got a photo here of Lauren and Jeff. There's the couple. What has she done to herself? I don't think she looks human.
I was debating whether, am I allowed to say that?
Look, everyone else is, so why can't we?
She looks like someone who used to be beautiful until she tried to look like Kris Jenner.
Yes. She's had the Kardashian impact.
Yeah.
Look at that waist. She's a 55-year-old woman. No 55-year-old woman has a waist like that. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's a corset. I mean, no human being has, very few human beings have.
Are you not familiar with a BBL?
Do I?
A Brazilian butt lift?
I feel like I'm about to really regret the next 3 minutes of conversation.
All right. I knew you were going to make me do this. Let's talk about old mate. This is Kim Kardashian.
Right, yes.
How much of that body do you think is actually hers?
Does she plan on getting dressed before the wedding?
No, that's what she wore to the wedding.
Oh, that's what dressed is these days?
This is the pajama party.
Okay.
So Leonardo DiCaprio walked in with silk pajamas, and that's how Kim Kardashian showed up.
Yeah.
Classy. So, you know that figure that Kim has here with that impossibly tiny waist and those very big hips? That's called a Brazilian butt lift.
Okay.
So essentially what they do is they do liposuction. So you have to put on a little bit of fat. So you need to have the fat in your body.
Yeah.
They basically typically put on about like 10 to 15 kilos.
Okay.
And then the surgeon sorry guys, this is horrific. They suck the fat out of those troubled areas.
Oh, yes.
And they reintroduce the fat around your hips and your bum to give you that hourglass figure. And they do it in a way that gives you that impossibly large derriere. And also this like crazy, curvaceous, voluptuous figure. She then obviously has breast implants. They then have threading. So threading is when you put literally thread under the skin and you pull up your eyebrows, you pull up your face. It's like a non-invasive facelift. It is invasive, but not as bad as like cutting your face.
I thought threading was when they used like some thread on your eyebrows to
threading
pluck
as well.
your...
That's sensational. If you ever want to tidy up your eyebrows, get like a little Indian lady to do that.
I never want to tidy up my eyebrows. I do it
to G all the time.
I'm planning to go the full John Howard.
No,
I want the full... I want a burning... Moses and the burning bush to be happening on my forehead by the time I'm 70.
Against G's wishes, I literally straddle him with my... with my tweezers, and I
I told you I was going to regret the next 3 minutes of conversation.
I'm like, let me get them.
We're not going to make it, are we, as a species? Like, if this is what we have an incredible surgical technology now that can save lives and pull people out of burning car crashes and work miracles on them.
Do you want my rant?
And this is what we're doing?
I'm ready.
Okay,
ready?
go. Locked and loaded.
Hang on.
I'm braced for impact.
This is a good one, and you're going to have to follow me. That's why I had to prepare it, okay? Because it's a great one.
All right.
I've talked it up. Now it's going to be shit. All right. So
just get to full momentum. Don't hold back like you did on Monday.
I did hold back on Monday.
You didn't trust yourself.
No, all right.
Go.
So I'm calling this Let Them Eat Ozempic. This is the modern tale of Mary Antoinette.
That's nice.
Let them eat Ozempic. All right. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what happened in the French Revolution, I'll give you a quick recap, right? France was drowning in debt. The aristocracy lived in obscene luxury. So those of you who are familiar with Versailles, the Golden Palace, and they lived in a level of decadence and opulence that you and I could never dream of. Something akin to what Jeff Bezos probably lives in today, right? Or the King Solomon from Saudi Arabia. Yep. The third estate, which is basically anyone who didn't belong to the nobility or the clergy, us, the middle class, the taxpayers.
And the lower class, yeah.
We paid nearly all the taxes, what else is new, and had no real power, as in like voting power, because it was a monarchy, and suffered from food scarcity and economic ruin. So these are your peasants. These are the people who are feeling completely forgotten about. Disenfranchised, right? Sound familiar? Anyway.
Just a little.
So the monarchy was oblivious, of course, much like old mate here, Bezos and Lauren Sanchez. And Mary Antoinette never actually said those words, let them eat cake, but it became kind of the catchphrase. It's a great
Hollywood line.
Isn't it? Where did that come from?
I've got no idea.
Yeah, but anyway. So you guys are familiar with that. You're familiar with that story. So
my liege, the people have no bread. Then
correct.
Let them eat cake.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the spark of this story and what led to the French Revolution, which happened over a decade, and then we had the Napoleonic Wars and all that sort of stuff, were the skyrocketing bread prices. We also had the public rage at wealth disparity, as well as a slow-burning humiliation of the working class.
Right.
And it exploded.
Yeah.
Does any of this sound familiar?
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we have our own Versailles, right? And Versailles now looks like private jets and super yachts. We have the Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez wedding, which was a grotesque display of luxury. And as I said, the court of Versailles is now represented by luxury of private jets and how big your super yacht is.
Yep.
We then have the Kardashians, who have their cosmetic surgeries and they're now framed as empowerment. It's empowerment for a woman to take control of her face in that capacity, whilst regular women are made to feel inadequate. And you can't achieve this. You have to grow old and ugly because you're not wealthy, right? Kris Jenner's just had a whole new facelift and everyone's like, wow, she looks amazing.
She's a fourth or fifth face now.
And to be fair, she does look amazing, but she also has the insane wealth at her fingertips and the choice of the surgeon.
And she'll have to do it again in another 8 to 10 years because it will not age well.
And so Marie Antoinette's wigs have been replaced by Ozempic and facelifts. So the whole...
Excuse me.
You are so interrupting me. That's fine. It's okay.
How dare I?
So the whole let them eat Ozempic thing is we're in a culture where the rich are literally medicating themselves to be thin, youthful and aspirational, while the rest can't afford proper healthcare, mental health support or time off work, and the groceries they need to eat or the heat to heat their homes and retire or even buy a house. Right. So we have now got a powder keg building in modern day world.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. What we're currently watching and what we're probably all quite familiar with is home ownership is becoming almost impossible. Youth unemployment and underemployment is soaring. We now have people who are highly educated who cannot get jobs and they're in debt for that education. The cost of living is outpacing wages. Billionaires are doubling their wealth, particularly during global crises like the pandemic. And there's a smugness in the elite culture now, much like this photo here. And let me show you this photo of Lauren, which is this one here. What is she, the fucking queen? Hello, my peasants.
Yes,
this is a chick who was
relatively
relatively unknown 6 months ago, and now she's on a balcony somewhere, like waving like she's fucking Juliet, right? But if history has taught us anything, the higher the tower, the louder the fall, and that is where I believe we are kind of getting to. So at the moment, this smugness represented by the elite is upheld by the media. The media protects these people and social media algorithms protects them as well. They believe that the public adoration is infinite and that they are untouchable. But we are close to a reckoning. And I have said this before. We now have Pluto and Aquarius, for those of you who entertain those ideas. And no, this is not the storming of Bastille.
We also have Mario. Mario Killer. Oh, Luigi. Sorry,
Luigi.
Yes.
Yes,
We also
Luigi
have
Mangione.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, where?
Yeah, Mario, Luigi.
I was literally thinking.
So was I. That's where my brain obviously went. Yeah. We have Luigi.
So we are not storming Bastille yet, but the signs are evident. We have a rising populism across the political spectrum.
Yes.
That's why we have Donald Trump as the president of the United States. We have record protests globally, and whether or not we agree with them, you've got to say that these people are agitated and they are organised and they have the free time.
But different protests represent different ideologies.
Correct.
But that's another matter. Yeah,
Correct.
It's not a single united protest movement,
No.
but there are a lot of protests going on.
There's a lot of discomfort.
Yes, a lot of discontent.
Gen Z and millennials are increasingly rejecting capitalism, celebrity worship, and legacy media.
Interesting.
This is the stats. This isn't just a observation. This is like what the stats are saying. So the question isn't if the backlash is coming, it's how it will come and what form of justice it will take in the age of live streams, leaks, and mass digital organising. So now you've got people like Karen who are trying to suppress speech, trying to limit what you can and can't say. We saw a lot of that in COVID, but the elites know this is coming. They've known this is coming for a while. And I think COVID was the testing grounds. We've talked about that before. But the government and the elite know what's coming, and they're taking steps to prevent the inevitable, like censoring information, legislating ideological beliefs, and inflating their pay whilst bleeding the middle class dry so they have no power and no options. But the cracks are already there, much like the Titan submersible on its way down to the Titanic. The carbon fibre was not built for this much pressure, and it will inevitably implode. And that is a visual I don't want you guys to think about because that is horrendous. But the last time...
Sorry.
That's all right. The last time the poor got this angry, they invented the guillotine. So they didn't actually.
Am I hearing incitement? Is that incitement, Carly?
No, I'm just merely pointing out some historical information. So the guillotine became the symbol of revolutionary justice, particularly during the Reign of Terror, which was 1793 to 1794, when thousands, including King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, were executed by guillotine.
Yep.
So I am of the opinion that we are now inevitably going to see this happen. I think it's going to be slower than I would like it to be, but I think you cannot put this cat back in the bag. You cannot put the genie back in the bottle. This is going to see people across the world feeling completely forgotten about. And I don't think Australians are the pitchforks type. I really don't. I think Australians we're going to see them protesting by not paying their taxes and black markets and bartering. I think you'll see a lot of that with Australians. And, G pointed this out to me last night. They're taking away cash, but that doesn't mean anything. There's other things that you can trade. And I think what you'll see is this quiet protest in Australia. I think across the world, like the French are already doing it. It's already happening in Ireland. It's already happening in the US.
Yep.
And I think what we're going to see inevitably is the collapse of these elite systems. And I think your Bezoses, unfortunately, I think it should be the politicians, but your Bezoses will be the first on the chopping block.
So there's a lot there. I'm going to go into bat for Bezos here. I don't have a problem with the rich being rich. I have a problem with people being held down in poverty. That's what I have a problem with. Couldn't care less about the disparity between the rich and the poor. My question is, are the poor getting richer? Is their situation improving? And up until about 5 years ago, the answer was unequivocally yes. Life every single year, or just about every single year, certainly every single decade, life was way better than it had been the decade before.
Yeah.
And we felt it in practice. So it wasn't just on paper, but the GDP number says. No. We felt it. We lived better every single decade.
Well, it's all relative too, because I think a lot of people get used to what their current reality is and not realise that like 50 years ago, we didn't even have colour TV. And before that, we didn't have hot showers. And before that, we didn't have electricity.
So if I said to you, hey, we can have absolute equality, but what we're going to do, and Jeff Bezos, he's going to be the same as you. We're going to knock him off his perch, bring him all the way down to your level. But it's going to happen globally, which means that on average, each person's going to have $11,000 worth of stuff. $11,000 worth of house, $11,000 worth of car, $11,000 worth of technology. All of it together has to come under that $11,000 budget. And that's how your new life is going to be set up. And you're just going to have to keep working to try and make it better from there. Do you accept the deal? Remember, Jeff Bezos gets knocked off his perch. Very few people would take that deal because it's also bringing their living situation down. Which illustrates my point. It's not really about the difference. If everyone was getting wealthier, the discontent would not be there, and rightly so. Now, because we see ourselves getting poorer, and we are, the numbers show that very, very clearly, Our quality of life is dropping. We're down to about 2012 levels now. So we've wiped out what should have been 13 years of progress, has now, all been wiped out. We are watching those people and there is anger rising.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's so easy to go, well, they have money and I don't. It must be them. They must have taken my money.
Yeah.
Nothing could be further from the truth, but that's a very, very easy sell when people are feeling the pain. But where I get really cynical about this is that drop in our quality of life has been engineered by politicians.
That was going to be my point. So G and I had this conversation over the weekend and I said, I understand the sentiment and I've been going out of my way much against me wanting to do this, but to try and watch left-wing political commentators and also read some of their articles to see what the sentiment is. And the sentiment is very much like tax the rich, right? And, billionaires is now the evil, the evil genius, right? That's who their villain is. It's not the politicians. It's not the government. It's not the policy. It's the billionaires.
Yeah, because the politicians are only worth tens of millions. They're not the problem.
Well, some of them are Nancy Pelosi's worth hundreds of millions. And so,
But she did it on a $400,000 a year salary. There's no corruption there.
Just so happened that she was just...
She's a genius with the stock market. Oh, my goodness.
And so, again, this is misdirected anger at people, but the politicians are really good at saying we need to go after Elon Musk, we need to go after Bezos.
And they feed that because they don't want people to realise who the real problem is.
And what I found really interesting around this Lauren Sanchez and Jeff Bezos wedding was the celebrities who are multimillionaires in themselves coming out and chastising these people.
Yeah.
So Charlize Theron, she's as woke as they come, basically saying, I didn't get an invite because we're just the plebs, but fuck them, we're cool.
Yeah.
You are worth millions of dollars. You're an ambassador for Christian Dior. Who are you to be lambasting Jeff Bezos?
Talk about out of touch. That response is every bit as out of touch as renting Venice.
Even better, Rosie O'Donnell, also a multimillionaire, chastising it. She wrote a poem about it, and it was so fucking insufferable.
I'm sure it was amazing.
I won't put you guys through it, but if you want, it's on her Substack.
Rosie O'Donnell said that if we took away guns, then we wouldn't have mass murders and mass shootings. And someone pointed out to Rosie O'Donnell that if we took away spoons, we wouldn't have people as fat as Rosie O'Donnell. But you can't have everything in life, I guess.
Funny.
But I love watching celebrities get petulant. I don't follow celebrities, as you know. This is not my bag. But watching them get all very self-righteous. They are in the 0.001% of the world, right? If you're in Australia and you're watching this and you earn more than about $50,000 a year, I got news for you. You're in the top 1%.
Yeah.
You're already there, right? Those people that you look at and go, oh, the 1%. No, they're not the 1%. You are. They're the 0.001%. And the Jeff Bezos are the 0.00001%, right? We get mad at them, completely oblivious to the other 99% of the planet that's looking at us going, could I swap?
Yeah.
Please, if you're someone
It's
happy,
so
can I please
relative.
trade with you? If you want to get rich, the number one thing you want is to live in a country where there are people way richer than you.
Yeah.
Nothing is easier than getting money out of rich people. This is a hilarious misnomer, this idea, rich people, they're so stingy, they never want to spend any money. No, they spend money all the freaking time, right? People
Especially if you make their life better.
Correct. People simultaneously complain that rich people don't spend money and complain, he just bought himself a new pool and a new car and a new this. No, hang on. He's spending money, isn't he?
And someone had to put the pool in there.
The reason why he's not spending it with you is because you don't offer any value.
Yes.
And if you got off your ass and you figured out how to offer value to those people, they will shove it at you so fast because the marginal utility of $1 to a rich person is lower than it is to a poor person. Very briefly, what that means is they will spend it on something that is relatively more trivial. If you're poor, every dollar matters. You need it for your power bill, for your food bill, for your rent, for your this, for your that.
And it's also a mindset as well. That poor mindset, you holding on to that money and you refuse to see the opportunities because you want to hoard the money as opposed to invest it. And you're more risk adverse as well.
I'm going to defend that to a certain point. I mean, you have to survive. And the fear of not being able to buy food is a pretty compelling fear.
Yeah.
But as someone becomes wealthier, they will, instead of buying the car that they can afford, the cheapest one they can find, they go, well, I like that car better because I like the feel of the leather. That's a luxury choice that only a relatively wealthy person will make. And so now there's opportunities to make money because they're going to spend it for increasingly trivial reasons as time goes on. And I mean, generosity as well, charity, etc., flourishes when there's wealthy people. The disparity in wealth is not the problem. The problem is that politicians have manufactured a world where it is getting harder and harder for non-wealthy people to survive. Our quality of life is dropping for the first time outside of wartime in hundreds of years. That is a completely manufactured crisis that politicians have created and they are now using to stoke discontent.
Yeah. The other thing is too, and this is something that Jay and I were talking about, you know, your Bezoses and your Musks and your Bill Gates and all that sort of stuff, they can accumulate wealth that then basically buys them power.
Yep.
They're able to pay off that person. They're able to
Yep.
lobby and all that sort
Yep.
of stuff. And I think that resentment, again, it's misdirected at the billionaires because they're able to do things.
Yep.
But everyone likes to think they wouldn't be the person that would also do that. And you see this all the time. Like we've just seen it now with Doge in America. They've just uncovered this massive scheme in healthcare. 300 people have been investigated by the feds
Right.
and have been indicted, basically.
I haven't heard this.
Yeah, it's just happened last couple of days. And essentially Pam Bondi came down and said that, you know, we've uncovered this giant scheme. They've been able to siphon out, I think it's like $2 billion. It's an obscene number from taxpayers. And this is the thing, that malevolence there is like when you see that opportunity to exploit that, it's much like the expense allowance, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I would,
politicians.
And whenever people get on their high horse and say, I wouldn't be like that, I'm like, but you already are.
Yeah.
If you're in your workplace, remember when workplaces, I don't think they have this anymore. But workplaces used to have like a stationery cabinet.
Yeah.
And you could walk in there and grab a pen or a pad or whatever.
My sharpener collection, you should have seen it.
How many people used to take a few extra pens home for their kids? That's already, like, that's the beginning.
That you're scamming the expenses allowance.
Correct.
Yep.
You think that's nothing.
It's not the same thing yet, is
It is. It's exactly the same thing, just applied to smaller value things.
Yeah.
And then that moves across. So when you're in that middle management position and you get your budget of 100,000, you might push it just that little bit because you need more budget, because you need more help, whatever. Yeah. But a lot of that 100,000 will probably be paying for dinner or paying for this or paying for that. So you are exploiting it, and everyone likes to think they're above that. But no, the second you have that opportunity or you see that loophole, you're seeing it with the NDIS. That's a perfect example. We are spending, what is it now? 20% of Australia are basically
more than what we spend on defence.
But the NDIS has 20% of the Australian population on it. 20% of the Australian population is classified disabled.
Is it the whole population? I know that certain age groups have a huge proportion.
I think it was 20% of the Australian population is on NDIS.
Which is
or labelled disabled.
Yeah, and if everyone's disabled, no one is.
Like, and this is the thing. So, so 1 in 5 people are disabled. And
that does ring a bell, actually, now that you say it like that.
I'm pretty sure it was 20%. This is why I should have my articles up. But this is what happens when we go on tangents. But in that, so I've looked at some of these cases, and this was a big one a couple of years ago. It's the discussion around the Thermomix. Now, the Thermomix is a luxury appliance.
Sure.
I did have one. I got caught up in the whole, this sounds great.
Yeah.
Do you know what I used my $1,500, oh no, it was worth, I think it was $1,800 Thermomix to do?
Right. No.
I used it to make porridge.
Oh, yeah.
It showed me all the things that I could do with it.
Well, I mean, thank God for Thermomix, because there is no other way to make porridge.
Correct.
You couldn't possibly do it on a stovetop, in a microwave. We're using hot water from a kettle. There are no other options.
It's one of those things. It was a massive wave, and I went to one of those places where they do the exhibition.
You became a Tupperware lady, didn't you?
I 100%.
You just went for the cult.
This is when I was in my paleo way, and I was.
You joined all the cults.
Oh, I did. I was young and susceptible.
CrossFit.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I was at Jonestown. I drank that Kool-Aid.
You asked for seconds.
I was in there. I was a little fitness energizer bunny. And, because back then, like, I was already on that bandwagon of not eating seed oils and not having any preservatives. And, like, we were hardcore about it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can make my nut butter from scratch.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
Did I ever?
No.
No, of course I didn't.
I will, though, say that I have a neighbour down the street. I'm not going to say your name, but if you're watching, hi. He makes fantastic use of his Thermomix.
Oh, look, they are brilliant.
I've been to his house and I've sat there and he's just, I don't know, and we're just chatting and he's just using it and like he gets great value out of his.
No, this is the thing. It is a great appliance if you aren't very good at cooking yourself. So if you're someone that's not necessarily adept at, being on the stove and having all your pots going and all that sort of stuff, then sure, there's nothing wrong with it. But now on the NDIS, it is so easy to be eligible to get there. I think they're now worth $3,000 because they're all digital. You can easily obtain a Thermomix, right? So all of a sudden,
NDIS funded Thermomixes.
It's a thing. Go look it up. It's a thing, and they're saying it's so easy. Now I know someone who is on NDIS and who actually needs it. This person has no limbs.
Yeah.
So from I actually won't even go into detail. I don't want to tell who the person is, but yeah. So no feet, no shins.
Wow.
And no hands. Right. Properly disabled. Now, this person rightfully needs someone to help it, but she's actually pretty independent, can do a lot of things, but, there's a lot of things she can't do. She can't carry her groceries, or, she can carry limited things. So she's someone that deserves it, but she has to go through all the rigmarole of trying to get the extra things, right, to make her life better, whether it's the prosthesis,
Yep.
or, new things as the technologies. And I don't know if any of you guys are amputees, but those things can be incredibly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
They chafe, they're uncomfortable, they hurt. So whenever there's
Hot spots, pressure points, rubbing sores. Yep.
So whenever the technology develops, obviously they're going in and trying to get new ones and whatever. But then you have someone who has anxiety and they need an anxiety puppy. They need, at-home care because they don't like crowds. And then we've started...
They need a companion to go shopping.
And there's a lot of this stuff on there. And this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The ADHD, everyone's got ADHD now. Everyone's got mental illness.
You get more of what you incentivize.
But this is a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that people want to feel special. Mm-hmm. They want a handout. So they convince themselves.
They want the free stuff.
Yeah. And it's becomes, like I said, we've embraced mediocrity because why try now when you can just get that money for free? Why would you try?
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. This is the recalcitrance of government now refusing to serve us and becoming our masters.
But not only that. So I want to give a really good example. Adrian Portelli, we've talked about him before. He's a self-made billionaire in Australia.
Yep.
And there was a tipping point. It was around 2023. And he did that. He was known as the Lambo guy, right?
Yep.
So you guys might be familiar with him as the guy who bought the houses on the block. Yep. And he rocked up in his SVJ Aventador. And obviously it was a marketing thing for him. He has the LMCT+. And from that moment, the media decided he was a villain because he was obnoxious.
Yep.
He was showing off his wealth.
Loud, out and proud. Yep.
And Adrian, to his credit, leaned into it. He was brilliant. And then he did the whole lifting the McLaren Senna into his penthouse.
Which, as publicity stunts go, that's a fantastic one.
Like, you can't do better than that.
Yeah.
Right? And now, obviously, to Adam Bant and the Greens and anyone who's like pro-socialism, he is like the devil incarnate.
Yep.
Now, Adrian Portelli grew up in Keilor.
Mm-hmm.
He was from the West. He was not, I don't want to say poor, but like, lower middle class, working class, right? And he tried a multitude of businesses that didn't quite work out. Mm-hmm. And then he hit the jackpot with LMCT and it did really well over COVID. Yep. And now, of course, you've got the ACCC and the watchdogs. You've got him now being pulled in front of the court multiple times, not just for his driving, but also around his gambling license. They're trying to find anything they can to ping him. He needs to be taxed more. He pays a lot of tax. Mm-hmm. He's got multiple companies and multiple investments. They want to stop him from being able to accrue more property. They're trying to tax him more because he's got the private jet. Yep. And so what you have now is people looking at Adrian Portelli who prior to 2023, he was unknown to them and he was working class. He was one of you and he's been able to, this is the whole crabs in the bucket theory. He was able to climb out of the bucket and the crabs weren't able to pull him down quick enough. Yep. And now that he's out of the bucket doing well and he's offering opportunities, he's a proper philanthropist as well. Yep. And don't get me wrong, a lot of that's a marketing opportunity for him. But great. People still, he goes to Carlz and he'll put a $100,000 tab at, Keilor Carlz and let people come and do their grocery shop until it runs out. Wow. He does that all the time. He does giveaways. He gives people a free house. Again, it's promotion, but you are actually obtaining something out of it.
I'm dying over here. Can we pause?
Yeah,
we never pause, but can we pause? I need to. So,
all right.
So, pit stop had.
Pharmacy Carlz over here.
Yeah.
So this stuff tastes like shit, but it works.
So you're giving me
drugs on camera.
Mystery. I don't even know. If I don't make it, tell my mum I love her.
This shit's laced with the good stuff.
And that I died doing what I love.
There you go.
Which was just talking shit. All right. Ugh. I'm not even asking what this is. I don't. This is a trust fall. This is an absolute trust fall.
Duratrust. This is not sponsored.
It's a Duratrust fall.
Yeah.
Get it?
No.
Okay, cool.
Got nothing.
You said it tastes terrible. That tastes all right.
Is it?
A little bit licoricey, a little like a hint of aniseed.
I
review cigars for fun. So
I hate aniseed. And here you go. Snort this.
But this is, wow, we are getting...
Block one side.
Oh, and then like a squeeze and...
Yeah, squeeze, so block one side. Make sure it goes up there. 2 each side, go on.
My apologies to all of our listeners who had to hear that. You'll be pleased to know it's now finished. I think I'm going to stop dying now, which is good.
No, I'm someone that has zero tolerance for being sick. Like, you know how you get man flu? Carl's flu, zero tolerance. I'll lose my shit. I don't care what people say. Give me the drugs.
Yeah. Look, I battled through. So I kept the family. I looked after the family while they all got sick one by one.
Yeah.
And I was the last one to go down.
Yeah. And down you are.
Well, look, it hasn't been too bad. I was out for about a day and a half. But now it's just this lingering cough that just won't stop.
The dry cough, the tickle.
It's so infuriating.
Yes.
Also, can I just brag for a second here?
Please do. You're going to anyway.
I've gone this far through the show without the headphones on.
Yeah, you have.
You know how every single show we take the headphones off at the end, we're like, oh man, that hurts. I'm like, you're right there. Why am I wearing headphones in the first place?
Well, this is embarrassing because I've been wearing them the whole time and I did not even realise.
The only reason, I was waiting for it to happen, the only reason is when you play me audio, and I was going to make a big deal out of it when you play audio, but you stopped playing audio because of the copyright strike. So I'm sitting here the whole time with no headphones on.
I feel like I look more like a podcast with
Well,
them
look,
on.
you do look more kind of serious, yeah.
I'm going to keep them on.
Yeah.
And plus my hair looks like shit, so.
Wow, that nose stuff has made my nose run.
Salt water. But that stuff dries it up like quick.
All right. Well, let's keep going. Where were we? We were deep down a tangent rabbit hole and we have no idea.
No, we're talking about Adrian Portelli.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about modern philanthropists and people going, he's only doing it for clout. Does it matter?
Yeah.
You're still getting the stuff. But anyway, my point is with this. So Adrian is a self-made billionaire and now everyone hates him, right? Because he's excessive with his displays of wealth. He's got a private jet, whatnot. And he's over in Europe at the moment having a great time. I'm like, why isn't that aspirational to you? Why do you see that as a detriment to yourself and your position?
Because people instinctively believe the lie that life is a zero-sum game. That there's only a certain amount of money, and if he's got lots, he's the reason why the rest of us don't have enough.
Well, you just had to look at Adam Bandt's attitude. You know, he came out and basically criticised Portelli for the stunt with the McLaren.
Sure.
And then it just they went back and forth over the private jet. But it came out recently last year, Adam Bandt was flying around in private jets for what he had to do. But it's rules for thee, but not for me.
No, that's right. And that's the virtuous corruption side of things that I've talked about extensively before, because their cause, what they're fighting for, is so virtuous.
Yeah.
They don't have to follow the same rules.
It's like he's going to make it through, guys. Just take this horse.
Well, now that we've had a pit stop, we can go till like sundown. We can go for
1,
another
2,
10
3.
hours.
Did that feel good?
No.
No. Okay. If I'm sick next week, I'll be so mad at you. I'll just
We'll do it remotely. Yeah,
I'll spray everything with Glen 20.
Because I won't. I'll just be like, no, I can't go near you. You're sick.
I'm a trooper. I'm not. I will fall in a heap and cry about it. I am pathetic when I'm sick. I know this about me.
But look, I respect people that can tough it out, and I have from time to time. Sometimes life requires you to. But if you're not in a situation where life really truly requires you to, just go and be helpless for 2 days.
Yeah,
and
just sit on the couch and watch a movie.
Just enjoy being helpless for a day or two.
And be a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this whole issue with the Bezoses, your AOC, your Bernie Sanders, your Adam Bandts, and
it's going to have the effect that you predict, but it shouldn't, because their wealth is not the reason why we're struggling.
Correct, but this is my point. We could sit here and argue the minutiae of the ideological differences here, but that's not what people see. People see they're wealthy.
Yeah,
I'm
not.
poor. That therefore,
the amount of money he spent on his wedding could have set up me and my entire family for life.
Yeah, it could have. You know, the typical tropes of like could have saved world hunger. Blah blah.
I can't afford another $100 on my power bill, but you can spend $50 million on a wedding.
Yeah,
I get all of that. It's superficial thinking, but that's unfortunately about as deep as most people go.
But my issue with this is when everyone stifles these billionaires from being able to earn money, you're also stifling innovation.
Correct.
So you're basically taking away the incentives for people to try and invent things that firstly make life better, that bring them up, and then also create opportunity in the economy by creating jobs and giving people opportunities in a local market. Like, I said on Monday, this is the time to learn a skill. And maybe you can monetize that skill and build a business out of that skill.
Yep.
Because right now, across the spectrum, so many people want to have those work from home jobs.
Yep.
Everyone wants to have the cushy laptop job. You know who people...
Everyone wants to be a podcaster.
But only a few are good enough.
Only
enough.
a select few have the talent.
Have this face.
Yeah. But it can get made in a surgery, so that's the good news.
When I'm rich enough, I can do the old Kris Jenner.
Yeah.
But you interrupted me.
Sorry. Everybody wants to have the laptop job.
Yeah, everyone wants that. So that means that there's opportunities in the market to do the jobs that no one else wants to do. And you just talked about before, like solve rich people's problems. That's the number one way for an entrepreneur to have success. So does having a podcast solve a rich person's problem? Probably not. You know what does? Doing their lawns, finding a different way to keep their pool clean, finding a way to organize their wardrobes or do their groceries.
They'll spend money because they're like, I don't like the railing on my balcony. And they'll spend a small fortune having the existing one removed and a new one put in.
100%.
They'll spend money on all kinds of things that you and I won't because our money's too valuable to us.
I'm seeing this happen at the moment. I've seen this young girl. She literally popped up on Instagram overnight, and I've been watching her account, and she's gone from like a couple of thousand to like almost 50,000. And because she's smart. So she's a wardrobe organizer.
Oh, yeah.
So she goes into, and she picked it well. She obviously found a couple of people who had big walk-in wardrobes that looked really aesthetic. And she's gone in there and like bought a whole bunch of shit off Amazon and organized it, made it look all even pretty. And then, you know, because it all looks very aesthetically pleasing and very luxurious, then she goes to the next one and the next one. And now all of a sudden she's got all these influencers who are hiring her. Brilliant.
So have you come across a guy online by the name of Enes Yilmazar?
Nope.
So he's a guy who does high-end luxury home reviews on YouTube.
Let's look him up. What's his name?
Tremendous. Enes, E-N-E-S. Just type that in.
E-N-E-S.
And then if you need to just go space and then
Yilmazar.
Yep, that's the guy. Now, I don't know how he started. I don't know what his origin story is, but basically he's carved out a niche for himself doing walkthroughs of the most high-end houses at Versailles.
Hi everyone, my name is Enes Yilmazar.
There you go. I could hear that through the headphones.
There you go.
He gets paid by people to come and review their houses because so many people watch that it helps them to sell. And having had a walkthrough from Inez is now kind of a little status symbol.
Well, that's how Ryan Serhant built Serhant. You know who Ryan Serhant is?
I know the name.
He's had a couple of shows. He was on before he was on Making Manhattan. He was on another show, Property Listings in New York.
Ryan. Yeah. I know who you mean.
What's the show?
He was on. The one where they were all competing basically to try
in New York, and
sell
they
the
were
most expensive properties.
The show's completely. But
there was a Swedish guy on that as well.
Yeah.
I know the show.
Yeah, so he's now got
$1 million
$1 million listings.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And so Serhant, I read his books. He's brilliant. His story's amazing.
He was always one of the ones that I liked in that show.
So his whole thing was he went to again, I tell you these underdog stories because this should light a fire under you guys. This should get you excited. It gets me pumped. You know, every time I see someone go from like here to like here, I'm like, oh my God, it's possible. I'm going to do that too.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what the Oddcast and our YouTubes are going to do.
And it's what you and I are literally working on in our own
100%.
lives, not just on this on the podcast, but also separately in our own lives. We are trying to get somewhere.
100%. But his story was he wanted to be an actor. He was a theatre kid.
Yeah.
And he went to the Big Apple, you know, to do the whole Broadway thing, was finding very small amount of success. Like I think he was on a couple of off-Broadway shows.
Yep.
And then he was like destitute. He needed money. So he saw an ad to go and do real estate. He was really shit at it. And then he learned that you can lean into like a persona. You can become a character. And then he did. And then the audition for $1 Million Listing popped up and he went on there and he had only been a real estate agent for a couple of months or something. It hadn't been long.
Yeah.
And he had the charisma to do well on the TV show and learn to become a real estate agent on that show.
On the job. Yeah.
Anyway, so now he has his own business called Serhant. And the same thing, Ryan does these epic tours of these properties. And actually, Enes has way more subscribers on YouTube. But same thing, he just did exactly that. Go and show these things off. Like, look how opulent this is. Look at this level of luxury. It's amazing.
And I watch car reviews for cars I can't afford and probably never will. Even if I could afford them, I probably wouldn't justify spending that kind of money. But I'm interested.
Yeah.
And I like looking at it. And I like knowing, I like the fact that there are people out there making this stuff, and the only way there can be people making it is if there's people out there buying it.
It's like watching someone like Pagani making a car from scratch.
Automotive
an artisan,
art.
yeah.
Automotive art.
Yeah.
I mean, Pagani is a law unto himself. What a he's a perfect example.
Yeah.
And you can't get a Pagani for less than about $4 million.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad there are people out there spending that kind of money.
Horatio Pagani.
But when you have industrialists, these days it's the Bezoses and the Elon Musks. But you rewind, it was Henry Ford with his conveyor belt and the production line. There before him were the railway barons and so forth. Now these people are very controversial figures. They were hated, but also loved in their time. But what cannot be disputed is that we are better off today because they lived, because they existed. If you remove them from history, if you remove them from the timeline because, they exploited people, they made them work too many hours and work too hard. Well, by the standards of today they did, but actually by the standards of their day, not so much. Although there was some genuine slavery, there were some things that were done very wrong. But if you remove them from history because of those things, we all instantly get poorer.
Yeah.
And not by a little bit, by a lot.
People, I mean, I always say I'm an avid history buff, but the issue is so few people are aware of this stuff.
Yeah.
They accept what they see as their reality to be the truth, right?
Yep.
And that's true for most people. Like, if that's what you see all day, that's what you start to believe. And what happens is, it's, again, I said it was self-fulfilling prophecy, but it also becomes you are the sum of the people that you spend the most time with. So if everyone around you's broke, you're going to be broke.
Yep.
If everyone around you has the same mindset as you, you're going to have the same shit mindset.
Yep.
And I hate to bring up Abby Chatfield, but this is a really good example. She's on that whole trajectory of eat the rich, these people, blah, blah, blah. But then I showed you, like, guys, in a couple of podcasts ago when she was on that SBS show that you're potentially going on.
Yeah, the feed.
Yeah. And she's like, I've got solar, I've got an investment property.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hang on a minute. Like,
come on.
She's riling up the masses to hate people who have been able to accumulate wealth or investment, whatever that looks like. And yet she is literally doing she's got the audience she has by playing that exact system. And then she sits there and criticizes it from her ivory tower.
But this is right across the board. These people, they cry poor, they cry victim. They have literally monetized the victim mentality, the what do they call it, the virtue, the victim virtue sort of stack. They've monetized that. And turned that into a business. But if they ever were to acknowledge that, then the business would have to come to an end.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like there was a guy, I don't know how true this story is, but there's a story about a guy in England who was down in his luck. Everything he did went to shit. And so he started a club for failures in England. And clubs, men's societies and clubs are all the rage. So he started a club for failures. You had to be down and out, and there was a set of rules. You had to be really down on your luck. The club did so well that he got evicted from his own club. Because he no longer met the criteria.
That's
right?
Brilliant.
Yeah. Now, these people are playing the victimhood card.
Yeah.
But they've done it so well and they've monetized it so well that they should be evicted from their own club.
Yeah.
But they have to keep this illusion
gaslighting is
going.
real though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they're so good at engaging people to a point they become so sycophantic to them that even though, this is a tangent, but Abby Chatfield, calling out the bullying while she herself is a bully.
She's literally built an empire on bullying.
But her entire audience are also those bullies and they cannot see it. So they go out there and do her bidding for her. Like, it's actually incredibly remarkable that they're able to do this. And, as we were talking about on Monday's podcast.
So look at Daniel Andrews in the ice tan, but damn.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like, these are cult leaders. That's what they are. And it is a cult.
I told you on Monday we should start a cult. I think it'd do really well.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
What will our cult be?
Look, let's not get caught up with who did what to whom and what to call a cult. Let's just start one and see what happens.
You will do our bidding. Do you feel convinced yet?
Clearly, I've given this a lot of thought. You can tell, right?
Yeah. I'm too much of a lone wolf to be in a cult.
Yeah.
As soon as something becomes like somewhat cool or a crowd gets around it, I'm like, nah, I'm out. Yeah. I'm abandoning.
Yeah. You're an early adopter and an early abandoner.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
As soon as things start to hit that mass adaptation,
I
I'm
knew
out.
them before they were cool.
Yeah, I am that person. Tangent 1 of the podcast.
Excellent. Tangent time, tangent time, tangent time, tangent time.
I had to prompt him to bloody do it. He forgot.
Is everyone sick of it yet? Like,
no, that's the whole point.
Look, and I've got a frog in my throat. I can't sing right now.
That makes it actually sound better. It's improved your singing voice.
Wow.
So I went and saw the F1 movie on the weekend with G.
Okay.
And I loved it. It.
I'm so conflicted.
You will love it. Like, it made F1 look way more exciting than it is. Like,
okay. Well, that's not hard.
No disrespect, it is quite a boring sport to watch.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, cinematography, amazing.
Yeah.
So it was directed by Jerry Bruckheimer, who also did Maverick.
He does lots of action movies and stuff.
And it was reminiscent of like a Days of Thunder, a Top Gun. Like, it was a...
Are we back on the nostalgia thing? It sort of recaptured that 1980s, 90s action movie.
But what it was Hollywood how you want it. Like, you want to go in there, you want to be entertained, you want to feel completely immersed in the story.
Okay. Did they shove wokeness and race and stuff down
There
your
wasn't
throat?
even a little bit. Like, one of the young rookie driver is a black guy.
Sure.
And, I kind of looked at him as like, so Lewis Hamilton was a producer on this.
Right,
and,
okay. There's maybe shades of autobiography in there.
Yeah,
maybe.
there's like shade. Like I really find it hard to like Lewis Hamilton. Not to take away from his established like
Phenomenal
accolades
driver,
and all that,
yeah.
but just as a person, I find him rather insufferable. But the rookie driver, I think, was somewhat modelled on Lewis.
Right. But there's a big difference between having a black lead versus making the movie about race.
No, it wasn't at all.
Yeah, cool.
There was not even a hint of woke, in my opinion.
See, actually, that's awesome because to have that opportunity, they've made a choice to say, no, that's not what this is about. We're just going to have a guy who's black as one of the lead roles.
The lead engineer, she was a woman in this.
Yep.
And she was a...
Which is true enough to life. There's plenty of race engineers and so forth
so
who are women.
So you hit the quotas without having to hit the quotas and it wasn't shoved down.
Yeah, that's good.
She had a point to prove. So I don't want to give away the movie, but she was basically taken away from, I think it was like Lockheed Martin in the movie.
Right, okay.
She was an aerospace engineer. She came across, she got recruited, but the team was about to be sold because they hadn't had any wins yet, no points.
Okay.
And so anyway, that's how Brad Pitt.
That's all real enough. That's all. Yeah. That is the reality of watch Drive to Survive to see the real world version of all that stuff going on.
There's lots of little stories. Like the main story is Brad Pitt, obviously coming in. But then there's the rookie story, and then there's a love interest story, and then there's also the story of the corporate espionage and what goes on from a team principal point of view and the people behind it. Have you ever seen a show, Outlander?
No.
It's on Netflix. It's based in the Scottish Highlands, and it's about like that whole tumultuous time between the English and the Scots.
Right.
So I'm going to say 1700s. Anyway, there's a character in that show, Jack Randall, who is the most insidious character I have ever encountered in a show ever. He is disgusting. He is a rapist. He's a sodomizer. Think the most horrendous, outrageous character in a movie. Anyway, the guy that plays him, I don't know if you're going to know this guy. But he's in F1, and he's one of those people that now I've seen him in this show, I can never...
Yeah, you can't unsee him.
So it's this bloke. Who is this guy?
I don't know
this guy's...
I'm sorry, I recognise his face. I've seen him in things. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know who plays him, but...
Jonathan Randall. That's the character name.
Actor. No, Jonathan Randall's the...
Is the character name.
Yeah, so this bloke. Tobias Menzies, there you go.
Oh, gosh, no, I wouldn't have got his name.
Yeah. So Tobias Menzies is like the antagonist in F1.
I feel like he was in one of the Bourne movies as an antagonist, or does he maybe just look a bit similar? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe he's just a good antagonist.
I think I might be thinking Jeremy Renner. No, Jeremy Renner was the later. Anyway,
it doesn't matter.
My brain's not working today. We've already proved that.
Mine's never working, so...
We've already proved that
match
too.
Match made in heaven. Yeah. So, but he's one of those characters now whenever I see him, I'm like, ugh, I hate you.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, okay.
Did you ever watch Sleepers?
No.
Yeah, okay. So my parents told me not to watch Sleepers. We had it on Laserdisc.
Yeah, okay.
And they also told me not to watch Jurassic Park. So what did I do? I watched them.
Yeah.
And I watched Sleepers and I was like, that's not a good movie.
Yeah.
So every movie Kevin Bacon was in after that, I was like, you're a bad guy.
But for other people, he's a heartthrob.
Only because of Footloose. Well,
because they saw him, they got to know him in some other context, and then he's forever the heartthrob for them.
Yeah, no. Anyway,
like for me, for example, I've got a poster of him at the end of my bed.
Everybody got Footloose.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I can smell the bacon sizzling, I'm like,
Anytime Kenny Loggins was invited to make the score for a movie, come on.
No, you lost me.
Kenny Loggins.
I'm assuming he's a composer.
Guys, help me out.
Is this in like pop culture stuff?
Danger zone.
Yeah. So you notice there's a bit of a divide between us.
Lord.
There might be a sagacious chasm between you and I on the political side. There is also a sagacious chasm on the cultural side as well, but in the opposite direction.
Well, anyway, I don't know how we ended up here, but we're here. But F1 was brilliant, and for those who are like F1 enthusiasts, there was nothing in there that was like, oh my God, that couldn't happen. There's a couple of things that like technically might not work.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not going to ruin it.
But nothing that breaks the suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I remember watching Apollo 13. It was the first time I'd read a book and then watched the movie shortly afterwards. So read the book about Apollo 13 and they go into, not massive amounts of detail, but they go into a lot more detail than what you can in a movie in exactly what went wrong and how they fixed it. And it was really lovely watching the movie and they would make reference to things and knowing, oh yeah, I understand all of what that, in the movie they just got to reference it and move on. But actually I know a bit more about what's going on there. And I can imagine it'd be a bit the same with this, where if you're not an F1 fan, you enjoy the story. But if you're an F1 fan, you know a bit more about what they're referencing, even if the details might not be there or might not be quite correct. You kind of get where they're going.
Do you know what I geek out on? Like, I do like F1, but I used to go to the Grand Prix with my family back in the 90s, early 2000s.
Back
once
when
Melbourne
they
got
sounded
it.
good.
Yeah. And, you know, we always had to have the earplugs in, and I was a Ferrari fanatic. Like, I was obsessed with Michael Schumacher. And that was back when it was like that epic podium switch between, you know, your Hackinens, your Coulthards, you know, Webber was there in the later stages.
Well, he was there from the very first year it was in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was always a Schumacher fan.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you get older, it gets more expensive. We didn't go as much. And I went, I want to say, when did I go? 2019. And I was so...
It's meh. It's really meh.
I don't want to say it was meh, but it was meh.
No, it is. It's unremarkable. And a big part of it's the sound. Now, I've got some good news for F1 fans on that front. There is a genuine push on, and it's got some traction in high places. They're bringing in a new engine next year. That's kind of set in stone. That can't really be changed. Normally, an engine formula will run for anywhere from 8 to 12 years. The current engine we're in now, I think this is its 9th year right now. I think, don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. The current engine they're bringing in won't be a lot better. It'll be a little bit better in terms of the acoustics. I'm talking acoustically. It'll be a little bit better, but they've created some real problems for themselves because they've tried to tell themselves that they can have 50% of the car's power come from the electric engine, but the electric engine can only return power that it's first leached off the petrol engine.
Right.
And so in order to recharge the batteries. So you've got this situation where you've got a lot of racetracks that run at 70, 80%, or not 80, but 70% wide open throttle. So that power unit, the engine is giving its maximum effort to propulsion for 70% of the lap. How do you harness, where do you harness enough energy to then move 50% of that energy across to an electric motor where it has to harness it first out of the petrol motor? There isn't enough time in the lap. There isn't enough spare energy being produced by the internal combustion engine to get harvested to then get used. So they're already doing these sort of power delivery curve mapping and all sorts of nonsense because what was happening was they would use the electric motor to accelerate early in down a straight because that's where you get the most benefit. And then the battery would run out of puff. And so now they're being left with only the petrol motor. Now their power is reduced and the car starts slowing down and even dropping gears before they've reached the end of a straight. This is what's happening in the simulators as they're simulating the next engine. They've created an absolute disaster for themselves. So they're going to sound a little bit better, but the racing is likely to be infuriating. It's just going to be about electricity management. They've already recognized, oops, we fucked this up.
Yeah, okay.
And now there's a serious push on to get to, there'll still be an electrical component. We're pretty much not going to get away from that, but to go back to V10s. And the argument is this is a spectator sport.
Yeah.
This is entertainment.
Yeah.
We need to make cars that sound like nothing you will ever hear anywhere else in your life.
Yeah.
And there's a genuine push on to go back to V10s.
That was the most exciting part about the Grand Prix was
If they don't sound like an alien spaceship, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
If I can hear that sound at Summer Nats or cruising down Chapel Street, I'm not interested.
But you nailed it though, which so obviously F1 was sold, right? It's now owned by an entertainment company.
Liberty Media.
Yeah. And it's very evident with all the celebrities that keep getting invited to like Miami and all that sort of stuff. They're trying to make it a massive spectacle.
Look at the graphics they give you now and the amount of information you as a spectator have. I mean, obviously technology's moved on as well and they're just leveraging some of that. But actually now, I mean, they've brought in game-style graphics where they're putting the name of a driver up above a car as it's flying through your shot. Stuff that really the old F1 management would never have thought about because they were a purist.
Yeah.
Where, oh no, we are the pinnacle of motorsport, darling.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we don't do that here. Whereas now we've got an entertainment company that goes, no, this is the pinnacle of motorsport entertainment. And that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
And I love the direction they've gone in the last couple of years with the exception of the engine.
Yeah.
And once they fix that, which I think this current engine formula's probably only got 2 years in it.
Yeah.
Because the revolt is already well and truly underway.
Well, they did an amazing thing having Drive to Survive. That's done wonders for the sport.
Wonders for it, yeah.
And
sounds like the F1 movie is going to be another boost
brilliant.
for them.
That's exactly what it was. It's marketing.
Yeah.
But anyway, just not to bore you guys, not everyone's into F1.
But you
brilliant
should be.
movie. Go and watch it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then last night, G and I watched Rush, which was about Niki Lauda and
Niki Lauda,
and James Hunt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, that's enough car talk for this episode. Sorry,
So,
guys.
we haven't got to my good news yet.
What are we like?
38 minutes in.
Please do tell me.
So my good news is I've just hit 90,000 subscribers on YouTube.
You have.
Which is pretty cool. And it's only about 6 weeks after I hit 80,000. So give it another month or two, and I'll hopefully hit the big 100,000. I'll get my little play button. I'll bring it in.
Yes,
I'll do a show and tell.
Yeah.
All right, you can feel it. I'll
put it
let
up
you
on the wall
hold it. Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll just fake it, pretend it's the Oddcast. You know?
Yeah.
No, that's a really big milestone, and I didn't expect to care about this as much as it turns out I do.
No, I think you should care.
Well, and I've kind of come to the same. I'm okay with how much I actually am looking forward to this moment, because for years I told myself, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do my videos. It was a hobby to me, and then I had the epiphany during COVID. I won't retell the story, but in brief, I had the epiphany during COVID. If I think that what I say is important, then it follows that I should make what I say digestible and try and reach as many people as possible with it. It's hypocrisy to say, oh, no, I say important things, but I don't care how many people hear it. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And
so I've been on a journey for the 5 years since, and you've helped me with some initial branding and now a rebranding that's happening now, but been on this journey to go, okay, I either need to make a living out of doing this or I got to quit. Like it's got to be one or the other. And that means either building an audience and actually being happy when that audience grows and actually caring or just walk away completely. And I decided, right, I'm going to give it a couple of years. I'm going to try and go the growth pathway. And if that doesn't work, I'll quit. But honestly, it's working brilliantly.
It's doing amazing.
I
watched your
I'm looking forward to it.
video yesterday about the B team. I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, thank you.
I will say on that, I actually did a mentoring session with a student of mine a couple of weeks ago. And they were in that phase where you're sort of hating on people who are more successful than you.
Yeah.
And I said to them, like, you are never going to be successful if you look at the people who are where you want to be and constantly chastise them and try and pull them down and tear them apart. I'm like, you are an influencer. If you want to have an audience, you're an influencer. You can dislike the word, but that's what you are. Embrace it, accept it. Accept that with that comes haters. Accept that with that, and I'm saying this to myself.
With great power comes responsibility.
Yeah, but also like, people might think you're cheesy. Something you might do is not perfect, but there is that steep learning curve you have to go through. And you're going to get ridiculed. You're going to have people like take the piss out of you. Yeah. But no one who got there didn't go that way. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to go through it. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people hate those who reach success and go, oh, well, they had it different. It was easier for them. It's harder for me. And I'm like, no, everyone goes through the same shit.
I was literally just saying to my wife last night, we were talking, and I'm saying I have a new appreciation for all that classic sort of genre of song that's often very egotistically driven about how, I've made it and everyone thought I wouldn't and blah, blah, blah. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of those that are just rubbish and it's just people, egos on display.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
But there are some of them that are a bit more thoughtful.
You have no idea what I'm talking about.
No, I have no idea. There's one that now you see me standing in the lights, but you never saw my sacrifice. Yeah. And now I'm the last one standing, something like that. Yeah. And they have a couple of different artists in there, including Eminem, which is why I came across that particular song. Yeah. And it came on when I was driving the car the other week on my playlist. And I was like, I'm starting to relate to this now. Yeah. I've experienced some of the sacrifice along the way. I've taken some big hits over the last couple of years, had to pull myself back together. I've come out of alcoholism. I've come out of some serious mental health crises. I've come out of financial ruin. And I'm putting my life back together, and I'm starting to listen to those songs and be like, yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what? I actually said this leaving the cinema when we saw F1.
Yeah.
Because they had like a great soundtrack too. And I said to Jim, like, that's the first time I've come out of the cinemas being like, yes.
Pumped up.
Like life is good.
Yeah.
I haven't felt that feeling in forever.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the movie Limitless and feeling the same thing. Like just coming out feeling like,
that's the one where he takes the drug. And
I'm like, wow,
that's
I could do stuff.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And I like I've said this before, I used to go to the movies probably every week.
Yeah, right.
I love movies.
Yeah.
And, since COVID, it's been very lackluster. But I came out just feeling amped. And there was an undertone to that whole movie that really got me. So Brad Pitt in that movie is the old dog that comes back.
Sure.
And he finally wins his podium. And, it's all happy, right? Yeah. And I didn't give the movie away. That's, that's just part of it. But, there's a part of that made me go, hey, it doesn't matter what age you are. You can always reinvent yourself no matter where you are. And as you know, I've had a bit of a chip on my shoulder since the COVID things. Mm-hmm. And there's moments where I'm like, cool, let's keep going. And then there's moments when I get a nasty comment. I'm just like, oh, and it's all part of it.
Yeah, it is.
It's all character building.
Yep.
But interestingly, on the live on Monday, when we were talking about building a skill, we actually got a lot of really nice feedback about that.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of commentary on that. And G said to me once we're done, because I felt a bit flat after that episode. I was like, okay. And it came downstairs. He's like, that was brilliant. You need to talk about that. Like, that was really uplifting. Like, get something, get people excited to start something and do something.
Yep.
And that's kind of what you and I are doing with this. Like, it's bootstrapped. Like every day it's something new, a new problem that you're solving, more money that you're spending.
Yep.
And at the moment, I'm happy to share it with you. The Oddcast is making maybe $100 a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
It's better than nothing. But
I mean, you don't need to share the $100 with me, but thank you for sharing the good news with me. Yeah.
I haven't even got it yet because Google makes you jump through hoops to identify yourself.
This is why the merch is going to be so good. Is because it'll actually mean that maybe we can pay some bills.
Yeah. Well, like this camera I just bought the other day, like it's all part of it, and that's fine. But it's interesting because there's I'm going to this creative or like content creator expo in Sydney in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And there's a guy there that I've been following for years. His name's Tom Noski, and he was a digital creator, and he's like, you see all these people just somehow they figure it out, kind of like what you've done.
Yep.
They've been doing it for years, and then something clicks, and then they change their content, and then boom, they have this like massive rise in what they're doing. And now he's got the Audi RS6, he's got the Rolex. And, I look at that and go, bloody hell, he was able to turn that around in 2 years.
Okay. It's because, so the engine metaphor is the best metaphor for any business, in my opinion, and being a content creator is a business. You can, if you were trying to build an engine from scratch, it would take you a very, very long time to figure out which bits and pieces you need in order to make that thing function to any level at all. But and you could spend years replacing bits and trying things and blah, blah, blah. Now, obviously, it helps if you have a set of plans, if you have a mentor, if you have someone who can show you the way. But let's say you tinker around for a long time, then finally you get this thing lumbering and it's at least keeping itself going, but it's going, all right? The amount of effort to get from kajuga to absolutely flying is relatively minimal compared to the work it took to actually
get it to turn over.
What happens though is so many people get it to that point and they're so exhausted that they go, oh, finally, it's running.
Yeah.
And they kind of stop at that point and they sit there and they go, oh, well, it's just getting me by, blah, 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 right? Which is fine. But to get from there to this thing is putting out 500 horsepower, and taking you places you could never have gone without it is comparatively, it's still a lot of work. There's a lot that needs to be done. But to get from that stage to that stage is comparatively minimal. And I'm determined to go all the way.
Yeah.
Get all the way to that point where, we are up there in the top 10 podcasts in the world, where you and I are traveling, we're speaking at major events around the world. We're living really well as a result of this. Not as people who are, purely just entertainers or takers, but actually as people that are bringing value and making everyone else's lives better and getting rewarded, because that's what capitalism is. If you make people's lives better, then they will then in turn make yours better. Yeah. Right? It's the transaction. It's the two-way street. There's something I didn't want to bring up, but I think I need to.
Uh-oh.
You know how we have a bit of a tit for tat with Apple and non-Apple and all of that. You mentioned the F1 movie earlier.
Yeah. I'm rolling my eyes already.
It brings me a tremendous amount of pain to admit that they custom-made cameras to sit inside the tight confines of the cars they were using to film in. And you said the cinematography was amazing and it looked fantastic.
It was all shot on Apple? Yeah.
Apple iPhone 15 hardware. Modified, heavily modified, but that was and they put a lens on the front and everything else. But fundamentally, Apple iPhone.
The whole movie was funded by Apple. You know this,
Yeah.
Yeah, Apple Studios.
Yeah, that hurt. I hope you appreciated that.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
I told you. I will get you eventually.
The reason why I went back to that and remembered that I'd been meaning to say that was we brought up cults, and obviously you're in the cult of Apple. So
I do get swayed into cults quite a lot.
You do. You really, really do go in for the cults. Yeah.
No, do you know what I think it is? Like I have this like tenacious part of my personality where I just get utterly fixated on something, and then one day I wake up, I'm like, I hate it. And I'm out. It's happened with so many things. I get so caught up in it and then I go, nah, hate it.
But you're sure that this whole ADHD thing is just a fad and you're not?
I don't think I have ADHD. Everyone likes to diagnose me as it, but maybe I do. I don't know. Don't care. But, back to the incentives of trying to get people out of the slums and this mindset.
This victim mentality.
I do find too, I've said this to G, like we look at a lot of X. And obviously because we're on the right side of the fence, we see a lot of stuff that's literally doomsday porn. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
This is happening, this is bad, this is terrible.
Yep. The fear porn.
It is fear porn. And again, like people doing that because it gets them clicks. Like there's a guy, Benny Johnson, I had to unfollow him because he's like the first one to put up something, breaking news, and it's always like a nothing burger. And I was like, you know what, this is actually not healthy for me.
It's exhausting. It is, the opportunity cost is very high because of what it takes you away from where your focus could have been, where you could have spent your time, your money, your energy, etc. It's so insidious, the black pill. It's so insidious.
And that's, you know, they talk about the woke left a lot, but like there is an element, and I'm not doing the whole Jordan Peterson thing, but there is a woke right where we want it to be the apocalypse and the burning down of society so bad that we're actually going to make it happen.
You remember the Y2K bug?
Yes.
There were people who were so sure that there was going to be an apocalypse as a result of computers clicking over into the new century that they basically went all in on that idea. They sort of stocked up, they moved out of town, they did whatever. And they were terribly disappointed. I know some of them personally who were actually disappointed when nothing happened.
I think there's an element of people who actually, what's it, Schadenfreude?
Schadenfreude is
when you take pleasure in other people's...
Taking pleasure in... It's more complex than just other people's pain. That's one I'm gonna have to look up because masochism is taking pleasure in other people's pain. Schadenfreude is slightly more nuanced than that, but I'll need you to Google it.
Schadenfreude is basically when you get excited by seeing someone else suffer.
Is it?
You take pleasure in it. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's very common on social media, for example. If you see someone have a hard time, like when I got robbed, my haters thrived.
Yeah. I think it's more nuanced than that.
Hang on, how do I spell it?
SCH.
Hang on a second. SCH.
AD. EN. FR. Yeah.
Pleasure derived from someone else's misfortune.
Is that simple? Okay, you were spot on. Yep, okay.
I know things, guys.
I stand corrected.
I'm not a total retard.
Well, I sit corrected, really, but, I'm corrected.
No, but I don't know if there's a word for these people who want that cataclysmic event. People who want to see like the super volcano in Yosemite blow up, for example.
Look at it with climate change. Like this storm that's happening right now on the coast of New South Wales. They want people to be drowning. They want people to be, without power, all the rest of it.
Isn't there a thing? Hang on, you've just started this train of thought in my head. There's an element of people who get so enamored with that idea that they then go out and do it in the hope that it starts.
Yeah, in order to well, I mean, accelerationist in one sense, but that's more complex than that.
It's almost like an arsonist who gets off on the fire and then wants to fight the fire. It's the same thing. So we're seeing a lot with the violent protests and the destabilization in cities like Los Angeles and Paris.
But it's also like we saw the guys that shot the cops up in Queensland, and they had this expectation, this mentality that there was a war coming, and so they said, well, we'll start it. It's a really dangerous mindset to get in. Yeah,
I think we're seeing a lot of that though, and I do see that in the comments on our videos. There's a lot of people going, and look, I'm not trying to chastise people, but I see this comment a lot. Oh, you haven't even gone that deep yet. Oh, you're so ignorant. You haven't looked at this person.
Just wait.
Yeah, I know more than you. And I'm like, and I always give this comment. I'm like, look, maybe you do. But also, are you doing any better than me for knowing that? Realistically. And there's an element of this, like, it's great to be informed, but there does come a point where ignorance really is bliss. And even if you are the most informed person on the planet, I guarantee you're probably depressed, anxious, you're not in a good position, and you're probably suffering.
But more than that, I don't think I've talked about my two tests on this podcast before, the two tests that I apply. So people come to me all the time. They want to tell me about conspiracy theories. I had one the other day chastising me because I still think that the earth is actually a spheroid rather than flat.
You actually entertain that discussion with someone? Oh,
no. I don't entertain the discussion. But people come at me with this all the time, and they go, wait till you realize. Ugh. And I have two tests before I explore anything, whether it's lizard people, shape-shifting lizard people, or flat earth, or that someone's trying to poison me through the water, or any of these things. And I'm not saying that necessarily fluoride's not bad for you, but if you want to go to the conspiracy level, I have two immediate tests. Number one, do I have the ability to access level 1 source information? Not someone on the internet telling me about a thing they read.
Yes.
Or telling me about a thing they know because they had a job that I can't verify they ever had. Level 1 source documents, stand up in court type stuff. Is there any possibility that I could access that on this topic that would verify or disprove this? If the answer is no, then it has to stay in the I don't know bucket. Now, in the case of, let's say, flat Earth, there's lots of things I can test that, for me, have convinced me we do not live on a flat Earth. We very much live in a solar model, much like what you would see if you Googled it online. But that's a case of where there's real-world tests. There's level 1 source documentation.
Didn't someone take
nature.
A bunch of them to Antarctica
Yeah,
recently?
if we took one, I think There was one in particular who was particularly high profile, and he actually, to his credit, said, yeah, okay, I've got it wrong.
I stand corrected, yeah.
Yep. But most of the time you can't. Most of these theories can't be tested empirically like what a flat earth theory can be. And you'll never get source documents. So you have to say, well, I can never actually know. But my second test is, even if I did know, would it change how I live in a real sense day to day? What if the Queen really was a shape-shifting lizard person? What if the US president really was a body double and Joe Biden had died, 4 years earlier?
Yeah.
Who knows? Who cares?
Yeah.
Will that change anything for me? Because if the answer is no, then all I'm doing is creating an opportunity cost for myself.
Yeah.
Where I'm spending time and energy on something that has no real world impact, but is taking me away from things that could have a real world benefit.
Yeah.
So for me, as soon as people come at me with this sort of stuff, it's like, could I even get to the bottom of this if I wanted to? Yes or no? And if I did get to the bottom of it and it turned out they were right, would it really change anything? In a practical, real world sense, would it actually change anything about how I live? The answer is almost always a complete no. So I park it and spend my time on the things that actually have some real world relevance. And what a lot of these comments are doing when they say, oh, you wait till you get to the bottom of it, they're saying, oh, you're being superficial. You're still in the real world.
Yeah.
Wait till you abandon the real world and come down into the chasms, into the underworld with me.
Leave the
that
matrix.
has no relevance to the real world whatsoever.
Yeah.
They don't realize that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
But they think they're superior because they're down in the dungeons and it's so dark and it's whatever. So, well, no, but you've literally abandoned any opportunity to do anything that's going to make a real world difference.
Yes.
And I'm not interested.
The other thing is too, and this is a word of caution to those people, and I know, quite a few of them listen to this podcast, is that if you ever want to have an impact, if you go too far down that rabbit hole, no one will take you seriously. If you come out rushing like, this is it, lizard, shape-shifting people, flat earth, friggin' tunnels underneath, Pizzagate, whatever, people go, oh, and immediately dismiss you.
Yep.
The best way to have any impact is to still be likable.
Yeah. And so the number one priority for us right now is to try and be the people that other people want to be. That's actually the number one priority. If you want to change the world, be someone that other people look at and go, I wish I could be them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wish I could be that. To illustrate your point though, look at someone like Alex Jones, right? He's been famously on the bleeding edge of every conspiracy theory for decades. Now he can go back and point out a bunch that he got right. What he's not talking about quite so much is
the ones he got wrong.
Sandy Hook and lizard people and a whole bunch of other stuff that is clearly nonsense. So a broken clock is right twice a day, and that's true whether it's silent, and that's also true whether it's extremely loud in the case of Alex Jones. He got a few things right, but he got so many things wrong. And the opportunity cost that he created by having millions of Americans running around like headless chooks chasing shadows is enormous, and we don't account for that.
You actually become a useful idiot then, because if you're distracted by all that, then you're not paying attention to what's actually playing out in front of your eyes.
And when he's right, he has no impact because he's been wrong so many times. He's become Chicken Little.
Yes. Yeah. And it takes away the impact of those things. And I mean, at the end of the day, I said this on Monday, you have to put your oxygen mask on first.
Correct.
And if you go too far down those rabbit holes, you're going to get stuck in one of those caves and you can't get out.
And what you said on Monday is exactly right. Learn a skill, be useful. That echoes exactly what I talk about in my course. And there's a little booklet, it's an ebook that I wrote many years ago. I've never released it. That actually, maybe its time has come. I have a theory called the 10, 100, 1000, and it's for people that want to no longer be dependent on a single source of income. Do you want to hear it? All right. Start a side hustle. And the rules are very, very simple. It can be absolutely anything, but you are going to start it with the intention of shutting it down. Because what happens is people get caught up in what should I do? It's like my identity is going to be wrapped up in this. It has to be the right thing. No. You're going to shut it down. Doesn't matter. Just pick something. Here are the rules. The experiment will happen over no more than a duration of 10 weeks. You will spend no more than 100 hours of your own time over those 10 weeks. And you will spend no more than $1,000 of your own money over that experiment. And your intention from the outset is to shut it down at the end. Now, you may choose not to shut it down at the end because it's actually going gangbusters. But your plan, your intention, your self-talk, and your talk to others is this is a limited term experiment, 10, 100, 1,000. And you're going to shut it down. My first dabble with this was with a 3D printer. I spent $329 on a 3D printer and a little bit more on some filament. Excuse me. I used some free 3D modeling software that I figured out how to use. And I designed some little game widgets for a Lord of the Rings tabletop war game that I play. And I began to sell them inside the Facebook pages that I was already on. And I very quickly paid for the 3D printer and made more besides. but it wasn't really worth my time, so I shut it down. But I suddenly had to play with spreadsheets and go, okay, how do I keep track of these orders? This person's ordered that and I wanted to customize this, and have I shipped that one yet, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, I ran into all the problems that you have when you're trying to run a business, that if you're an employee, you may never have actually been forced to think through that. I mean, it's obvious stuff, but if you haven't had to think it through, then you haven't had to think it through. And that was the beginning of my journey into entrepreneurship. And I didn't sit there and go, I'm going to build a 3D printing empire. Right? I didn't attach my identity to this thing. I didn't go all in and bet the house. I'm going to mortgage the house to the hilt and buy the latest and greatest 3D printers, and I'm going to change. No. 10, 100, 1,000. No more than 10 weeks, no more than 100 of your hours, no more than 1,000 of your dollars. You can reinvest profits if you want to. If there's revenue coming in, you can reinvest that, but no more than 1,000 out of your pocket. And the entire purpose is self-education.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, once you've done that 2 or 3 times over, you will have had the early failures already that take out the majority of new businesses.
Yeah.
You will have already encountered those on something that didn't cost you the house. And now when you turn around and go, okay, I'm actually going to have a serious go at something, you are much less likely to make those really fundamental mistakes.
Are you familiar with the concept habit stacking?
I'm familiar with the concept. I haven't read its
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. I haven't. It's sitting on my shelf. It's in my to read list.
This is something I say to my students. I call it failure stacking.
Okay.
Because this is the thing. Most people fear failure not because it will fail, but because the judgment they will have from those around them, and there's a level of embarrassment. And I say to them all, I'm going to give you 10 things I want you to do, and 9 of them you are going to fail at immediately. One of them might be like, I need you to shoot a basketball from the 3-point line. And if you don't get it in 10 goes, you failed. And most people do. If you never shot a basketball, you fail.
I might get one in, but that'd be about it.
I want to see you run a 5-kilometer run at, like impossible things. And people go, oh, I can't do it. I'm like, duh, you've never done it before. Guess what? You've also never done a business before. You've never tried to go out on your own before. You are going to fail. That like once you make peace with it and accept that's part of it, then you go, oh.
And the key with the 10, 100, 1,000 is, how do I give myself the ability to fail multiple times without it taking me out of the fight?
Yeah. But this is the problem, right? So exactly what you said. Most people do this with the entrepreneurship, and you see it and it's heartbreaking. They come up with this idea and they never test it in the market. They think it's amazing and they shop it around to their friends and family who tell them they're crazy, and in their mind they've watched way too many Instagram clips that tell them, you got to do what you're passionate about and fuck what the haters say. And so they go and do it, and they take out all this money and they put all this money and they get all this inventory without having spoken to anyone, and it flops.
And they tie up their identity in it. Their sense of self-worth is now wrapped up in it. They've pissed off so many other people, and so many other people have said this is a dumb idea, that now when it fails, they've broken a bunch of friendships. They feel like they can't face those people anymore. They've ruined their life on one bad idea that could have been tested much more cheaply.
And I saw this with some of my haters, right? They pick on everything I do. I've done, since COVID, I've tried multiple different things just to see if it worked, see if I liked it. One of them was like online mentoring, like a course, but like over 8 weeks. And I did it. One was called Take Up Space, and I did really well with it, but I actually didn't enjoy doing it. I found it very, very laborious, and also I got frustrated because I wanted to get the results for them, but their enthusiasm didn't match mine. And that was a really hard thing for me to swallow. I was like, I want you to do really well. I'm invested in you. And they were like,
do well or else.
Well, yeah. And I was like, I've got 20 people in this course. I want to see 20 people kill it. And of those 20 people, I realized very quickly, maybe 2 or 3 of them would actually make it.
So, Anthony Robbins does stadium shows, self-help, business, all the rest of it. And he can tell you all the stories. And Amway can tell you the stories of these people that transform their lives, blah, blah, blah. They've had, well, in the case of Anthony Robbins now, millions of people go through live events. Of course, there are some that have absolutely killed it. And the rest, well,
it's a numbers game.
The rest are a bit more like me. Did the course 20 years ago, and it was helpful, and it's still helping me to this day, but I haven't made it yet, you know. And that's the reality. You put 20 people together, even motivated ones, with the best possible guidance, and most of them ain't going to make it.
So, and again, so just to illustrate the point and use myself as the example, my haters were shitting on me because they're like, oh, she never ran it again. I'm like, but you don't know why I didn't run it again. I didn't enjoy it. It was 8 weeks, 2 live things every week, 2 hours every night. I was exhausted and it didn't give me the fulfillment I hoped it would.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that wasn't for me. I know a lot of people who do that and it does do well.
I will say, though, that hearing you talk about it and talk about this concept of taking up space, etc., was actually helpful to me.
Yeah. Was it?
Yeah. So I've always had, we talked about this before, I grew up with a bit of an inferiority complex and a sense of unworthiness, and I didn't want to be an imposition on people, and I always assumed if I was invited to something that it was because they wanted me to help in some way or work in some way. I had to earn my acceptance, right? That was what I grew up with, and we've all got our own backgrounds and issues, and that was mine. And the idea of taking up space, the idea of actually having a domain that's like, no, this is mine, and it happens my way. And if you don't like that, you can choose to separate yourself from it, but you're in my space.
Yeah.
And I didn't do your course, but I heard you talking through some of these concepts, and I actually sat there and went, yeah.
Every now and then, guys, I do make sense.
Well, and for me, it was like, well, why is it that I completely accept that every other person around me is going to have an impact on the environment, and I don't have a problem with that, but I'm not allowed to.
Have I ever told you the orange shoe concept?
No.
All right, I'm going to tell you on this and just entertain me. This is a bit of a tangent, but I feel like there's
Tangent time. The Duratus must be working. I feel great. Tangent time. It's
full of codeine. You're like, woo!
Tangent time.
And I gave you meth. I've dosed you up.
And I'm going to have to drive the car soon. Woohoo!
Okay, so as you guys know, I grew up, my young childhood was in Japan. And you can imagine what I saw, right? We lived in Kobe. It's not Tokyo, but Kobe was quite futuristic. It's a harbour town, and we travelled extensively when I was little. So I was well-travelled by the time I was like 7 years old. Saw a lot. You can imagine having that upbringing and then moving to Australia and going to primary school in Sunbury. You can imagine the culture shock I had.
And this is primary school in Sunbury 30-odd years ago.
Yeah, so I can't remember, was it 95, 96? I can't remember exactly when we came here. But anyway, so going into primary school, and I'm telling people how I used to catch the monorail to school and I used to play on the Apple computers, and everyone's like, we only have...
liar.
Yeah, and I think I've told that story, haven't I? I got sent to the headmaster's office. And so... immediately when I was a child, I was painted as that one, the weird one. She's the odd one out, and I guess when you're at that age, I wasn't a teenager yet. I was like, I guess I am weird, but interestingly, when friends would come over, we had the laser disc player, we had the surround sound stuff that no one had, and everyone was like, wow, their house is really cool. So it made me stand out for many reasons. And I guess that's how my personality shaped as well. I always knew I was going to stand out, and I always knew that was polarizing. Yeah. And so I've made peace with it a long time ago. Yeah. So now I don't even care. But I'll tell you this story. I'm sure we've all got a similar story where you went out on a limb and you did it and then you got humiliated.
Oh, yeah.
So in year 7, we were doing the typical go and buy your school shoes for the year. And we went into Rebel Sport. It wasn't Rebel Sport. It was like Sports Power or whatever. And in a sea of white and black runners, Nike, Adidas, there was one pair, and they were fluorescent orange.
Love it already.
Right? And when I say fluorescent, I mean witches' hats. Like you see them out of the corner of your eye. That's how bright they were.
Manufactured by 3M.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they were $108. I remember the price. And I was like straight away like these. And they were men's shoes. They weren't even women's shoes. And my parents are like, just think about this decision. Do you really want those? And I was like, yes, I have to have these shoes. So anyway, we buy the shoes. I am so pumped to wear them to school. I am so excited. They're on my feet. I'm running around like pumped. I can't wait to show everyone my sneakers. This is Australia in, when was I in year 7? 97, 98? Can't remember. Anyway,
Don't know. You tell me.
Long time ago. Like I'm telling you now, there was no sneaker culture and no one was wearing fluorescent runners. I rock up to school and I'm only in year 7, right? So new to high school.
Yeah.
And without even within a second of stepping out of the car, someone's like, wow, nice shoes. And then the drop off point was here and it's like, I don't know, a couple 100 meters up to the school. Everyone was just like, whoa. Rubbernecking, whiplash from turning their necks. Oh my God, look at her shoes. Oh my God, they're so gross. Oh my God, I can't believe she's wearing those. That's all I heard for 5 minutes, and just imagine it like a tunnel. And then I get into the classroom. The first thing the teacher says, wow, Carly, they're really bright shoes, aren't they? The whole day I was picked on for those shoes, to the point where I ran home, cried, threw them in the bin, and swore never to wear them again. And my parents pulled out those shoes, and to be fair, this was a great lesson for my parents. They pulled them out of the bin, and they put them on the table, and they looked at me and they said, you made that choice. You wanted those, and you were so excited. So what happened between you this morning putting those shoes on and now wanting them in the bin? And I was like, everyone was so mean to me. And my dad was like, well, yeah, because you have something that no one else has. So rather than be excited that you have that thing, they're jealous. And that was my first proper lesson in envy. Were they jealous? Who knows? But that was the way my dad painted it. And he's like, we have a lot of things that people don't have because we went somewhere that most people haven't been. You know, I had a mini disc player where everyone still had cassette tapes.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm rocking up with mini discs. I'm like 2 evolutions above.
Yeah. Oh, I like how you say above. Not ahead.
Ahead.
You're above.
I was above. My elitist ways are coming out. Anyway, so that was the story. And I never wore those orange shoes ever again.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, right, a couple of years, and that the sneaker thing it was a real mainstay of my character because then I had a activewear company, and now of course there's a sneaker culture.
Yeah.
Everyone has
You're just
sneakers.
too far ahead again.
Right? And so I've always had shoes that were the statement of an outfit.
Right.
Like that, you know, like whether it's high heels or runners. Fast forward to like 2018, this is when my company's doing quite well. And I see this like letter from a sneaker, I think it's Complex magazine or whatever. And they have re-released these Adidas sneakers, the bright orange ones. And they are getting re-released as like a celebration of Dragon Ball Z. I didn't know if that was what they were back then, but it didn't matter. They were the shoes, and I didn't have them anymore. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to buy those for my younger self. And I ended up having to buy them like via the resellers because they were so popular. And they became one of the biggest.
Fortune.
Yeah, they I think I spent like $500 or something. They became one of the highest grossing sneaker release of that year.
Yeah.
That's how cool they were. You couldn't get them. And then I ended up getting them. And to be fair, I probably wouldn't choose them today.
Sure.
But I bought them for my younger self because I was like, no, I was bullied out of being different. I was bullied out of making a choice that was different to everyone else. And rather than anyone embracing it, I was bullied to fit back into the crowd.
Yeah.
Now, Jordan Peterson has that theory about the zebra.
Yes.
And the way zebras work. I
Yes.
won't go into it, but, you know, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. That is very much Australian culture.
Yeah.
So I grew up as an outsider in this country. I am Aussie, but everyone here resents me because I don't look like other Aussies. I didn't play netball.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Vegemite was. I didn't grow up watching Play School. So I was an alien. And that's kind of been the tone for my whole life. So now I have this thing where I wear the most outrageous shoes to get the attention that I need. So you and I went to the Stephen Bartlett thing. Do you remember the shoes I wore?
No, not at all.
Yes, you
I
do.
am not a sneaker freaker.
No, they were those hyper-coloured, iridescent high heels with the spikes on them.
Yeah, I can picture them. I've seen you wear them. I don't remember them from that particular event. I can picture them, yeah.
So they were Alexander McQueen iridescent stiletto pumps
Yeah.
with spikes on the toe.
Right.
Every time I wear those, I get attention.
Yeah.
They are the ultimate icebreaker. And that's what I use now to be able to have conversations or to make myself memorable. And this is the thing. If you blend in like everyone else, no one remembers you. But the sneaker thing or the high heel thing where I wear like a loud color shoe is an instant icebreaker because someone has something to talk to you about. They're like, wow, they're cool.
And some people like statement sneakers. Some people like statement jackets.
Yeah.
Some people like statement handbags. For me, I took a bit of a different approach. I have statement teeth. They really make me stand out. It sets me apart from everybody
I'm glad
else.
you made that joke and I didn't.
But no, the reaction from the other kids it's very much the zebra thing, but it's a tribal reaction. How do you prove that you're that you're one of the us, not one of the them? Well, you can do all the right us things and try and work your way up the pecking order, blah, blah, blah. That's hard. The easy thing is to point to the them. Because if you're pointing to the them, what are you?
Yeah,
You're an us.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're so quick to mock and to criticize differences is because it helps us to retreat into the safety of the us. And then the minute someone else joins in, because I also want to be part of the us, we're like, oh good, I'm in the us, right?
And we saw that with woke, right? Very
saw it with
quickly.
COVID.
Yeah, COVID. The community policing, the pointing out all the faux pas or the social media faux pas that you were making because you misgendered or you misspoke or you didn't have pronouns or whatever. And it's really interesting because I still have people, I'm sure you have people now saying, oh, I get so much criticism if I speak up about this stuff. I'm like, get over it.
Yeah, 100%.
Get over
100%.
it.
Who are you?
Yeah, the sooner you start speaking up, the easier it is to stop caring.
Is that really how you want to live? Do you want to grow old, looking back on your life, going, oh, I'm glad I avoided all of that criticism?
I'm glad I avoided all that conflict.
Yeah, just I lived such a fulfilling and wonderful life because no one had a go at me on Facebook.
And I was so mediocre that no one remembers me. And this is the thing, and this is what I try to tell people with the take up space thing. Everyone has their version of the orange sneakers. You have a moment where you felt humiliated because you made a choice, but you appreciate that and you go, okay, cool. That's the moment that I stopped caring. Cool. All right, done. You know, and you grow up that way. For a lot of people who have lived a relatively simple life and haven't ever put themselves out, maybe have never had a business, never made a real effort to sort of push themselves, particularly in adulthood. It can be really hard to make those things. And I think COVID was that for a lot of people. The amount of people, and I say this, it sounds like I'm being critical, and I guess maybe I am. The amount of people who use like yourself or me or your Rukshan or your Arvies or your Monikers to hide behind.
Okay, but this is actually really important. I read one of Andrew Bolt's first books. Andrew Bolt, journalist for the Herald Sun. He was one of the biggest columnists of his time because he was the only one on the conservative side. Everyone else was left. And he wrote a book, and he said the only good thing about the book was the foreword. Turned out it was just a compilation of his columns, and it was really unremarkable, and I never finished it. But the foreword was interesting. He said two key things. He said he wanted to thank all of the other journalists for not being conservative because that was why he was so wildly successful. They had left half of the Australian population for him, which I thought was funny. But secondly, he talked about shifting the Overton window, and he talked about the fact that people think that those that are pushing the boundaries of the Overton window are doing so because they want you to agree with them. And he said that's not necessarily true. And I'm paraphrasing what he said. He said basically what he sees himself as doing is opening the Overton window so far that other people can point at him and go, oh, no, I'm not with him. But you know what I do think, right? And now they're going to be willing to go further than they otherwise would have because they can first point to the them.
Yeah, I'm not one of those.
That's correct. I'm an us. Don't you worry. Oh, no, I'm not them. No. But you know what I do think, right? And suddenly they have permission to have that conversation because they can position themselves within the us.
It's like Pauline Hanson. Remember early days, Pauline Hanson, everyone's like, oh my God, she's a racist, she's this, that, the other.
Yes, so she opened the Overton window and other people said, oh no, I'm not like Pauline Hanson. But you know what? Yeah, it's
Pauline
exactly
Hanson walked so that Lydia Thorpe could run.
Yeah, something like that.
But it's interesting because, we're on the tail end of woke, for example, but I think that was one of the greatest examples of watching people do all the things and you still get caught out because you haven't done enough of the things.
Yeah.
And, to bring it back to GMI's little bucket theory, it gets to the point where the bucket's getting smaller and smaller and smaller because you've pushed out as many people as possible, and then it's just you standing there isolated by yourself.
Yep.
Clementine Ford's doing that to herself, for example.
Yep.
And and now a lot of people are sort of rudderless and wondering where they belong. And the truth is, you can be on your own. You don't have to necessarily belong to a thing or be in one political faction. You can be like, I agree with a little bit of this. I like a bit of that, and I understand this.
Yep. And it also comes down to, do you want to have an influence or not? Now, not everyone does. Some people are just busy doing their own thing, raising their families, whatever it may be.
I call them worker bees.
Yeah.
And people look down upon that. The different types of personalities. You've got your type A's, your type B's.
Yep.
I call them the worker bees. Not everyone wants to be a Jeff Bezos.
Correct. And that's fine.
Yeah, with that kind of power and money comes great responsibility.
And can you imagine being Adrian Portelli and having, you're hated in the media, you're being chased unjustly or justly, I don't know, but you're being chased legally, chased by the tax office, audited by this and that. Everyone's after a bit of your money, and they think that you're an easy target because you're the villain in the media.
Yeah.
No
then also, not only that, like it gets to a point where, are these people my real friends? Do they really like me? Do they want to be here because of me, or are they here because of the money?
This is something that I've been talking about with my wife and also with a couple of close friends that I do have, and you and I have talked about it before because you are one of my close friends. There's going to come a point for me, and the same will happen for you, where I will never again be able to make a new friend without having to at least ask myself the question. Right? It's not to say that people can't be sincere, that I can't make a new genuine friend, but there's always going to be that overlay.
Well, this is why, and I'm not defending it, but this is why a lot of celebrities date other celebrities. There's a commonality there where they understand each other and they have the same risk.
Yep.
A lot of people are like, all the rich people just marry each other. I'm like, well, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I understand it. So when I had the clothing company, there was a time there where I was riding really high. And because I was so young that I was traveling so much, I didn't want to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And so I took a lot of my friends for the ride. Now, I sound really silly saying this now, but I was very naive, and I'm happy to say that. I was 24, 25.
Yeah.
And, for example, I'd be going to Broome, and that's a long way to go from Melbourne. You got to fly to Perth and then Perth up. And I didn't want to go on my own. So I flew a friend. I paid for everything. I paid for all the accommodation. I paid for the hire car. I paid for the food because that person didn't have anywhere near as much money as I did.
Yeah.
And I used to have all my clothes. So I give people clothes because I wanted people to wear my clothes. I wanted them to love my clothes. And I was excited. And you know what? That T-shirt only cost me $20, so you can have it. And then interestingly, when the business started to do not so great and I had to tighten things up and I had to make some tough choices, those friends weren't that sympathetic and those friends sort of fell off. And interestingly, even more so, particularly when I made the decision to close the business, those friends were gone. There was none of them left.
So I made a conscious decision as I began to realize that threshold is coming. I don't know, maybe I've already passed it. Maybe it's still a few years away. I don't know. But at some point, I'm going to look back and realize I've crossed that threshold. And I can never make a new friend without having to at least ask myself, why are they here? The value of the friends I already have goes through the roof.
Yes.
In that world, the value of the people that I know, they're actually my friends. They're incredibly valuable people. And I went through and I kind of just went back through my memory and I audited and I went, who are the people that have paid a price to be my friend in some form or another?
Yeah.
Reputational, criticism, going out of their way to help me at times when I really couldn't do anything for them, etc. And it's actually quite a long list. I've been blessed with some really tremendous people. And some people have actually paid quite a high price. And for those people, they're the ones that I spend money with now. When I've got a little bit of money, now that I'm starting to make a little bit of money and I'm investing in rebranding or I'm investing in T-shirts and merch or I'm investing in other areas and other things, I'm spending the money with the people that I know would have come and done it for free.
Yeah.
Right? And going, okay, I know you were there for me. And so now that I've got money to spend, I'm not going to, so often people go, oh yeah, I'll take all the freebies, but now I've got money. Oh no, I need someone who's serious. I need someone, the kind of, we categorize these people. It's like, no, if you were willing to be there for me when I could offer you nothing in return, well, now that I've actually got something, here.
Yeah.
And what I believe I'm building and what I hope I'm building is a team of people that can rise with me and that we're all going to go gangbusters, right? It's going to be massive. What I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what the end of it is. I've got another hopefully 40, 50 years to live over which I'll discover where does this go? What does this mean? What happens? But it's going to be amazing. And I'm going to be surrounded by people that I know are actually in my corner.
Yeah.
They're not hangers on because when I arrived in their life, I'd already made it and I already had money and I already blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Or they were enamored by the possibilities of them getting the success.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that a lot, and I certainly saw that in my business. So, you know how I've been talking about Tattle Life? I have almost pretty much proven that one of them is my ex-employee.
Yeah, right.
Right? Now, this ex-employee, she kind of pushed herself into my life, and it's easy to say that now. I'll tell you the story really quickly. So I, there was a lot of CrossFit frothers, I call it. People who adopted CrossFit well after its initial rise.
Yeah.
I was OG. I was there when it was like nothing. And so
you were there before it was cool.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I was there when it's like early days and I loved it then. And then by the time like it sort of had that massive sport peak, that's when everyone started to jump on it. And it was so easy to see the people who were new to CrossFit because, hook, line and sinker. They did all the things. They wore all the things. And you're like, oh God, there's another one. And that's fine. Like it's just one of those things
they
that you
were
love.
buying your merch.
Correct. Anyway, this person wanted so much to meet me. Right. And they made a couple of like comments on Instagram or emails like, I want to help you. And I'm like, hey, thank you, but no. And at this point I was pretty wary. And then one day they had a return, or it wasn't a return. They somehow made their way to my house. Ooh. And this freaked me the hell out. Yeah. Right. And so one of my employees at the time went to the door and I was like, I'm not here. And the person was like, oh, I was hoping Carly was here and I wanted to talk to her. And the person's like, no, sorry, Carly's not here. But, thanks, I'll let her know. And I was like, wow. That should have been the ultimate red flag.
Yeah, that's a little bit red flaggy.
And then anyway, a couple of years later, we were at some event. This person comes up to me and to be fair, like she won me over. It was clever. Because I was short on staff and this person became very useful, as in happy to roll their sleeves up and get their hands dirty. And I was like, all right, great, cool, thank you. Like, I appreciate that. And then, made herself quite invaluable and was productive. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, you know what, maybe I misjudged you. Yeah. And then, I gave her the job. And this is when the company was starting to go a bit like, bit wonky. And I was also over it, if I'm honest. My attitude had shifted. And there was a few things about her that just didn't quite add up. The stories were really colourful. There was a lot of exaggerations. There was a lot of dots that didn't match. And it became evident that this person was hanging on a little too tight. And I won't go into the reasons that made me really kind of suss this person out. But there was a couple of things in the character that made me go, And then eventually I let them go. And then ever since, that person has been trying to get back
Way
into
to
my
make
life.
an enemy.
Right? Mm-hmm. And they reached out before the whole COVID thing. Oh, I hate how things unfolded with us and I'd love us to be able to reconnect. And I'm like, thank you. I appreciate that. I know that was a hard email to send, but, the past is the past and let's just leave it there. Whoops.
Yeah.
Because that was like pouring kerosene.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm almost convinced that person is one of the Tattle Life people. But the reason I tell that story is because, I learned a lot of those lessons really young and they sucked.
Yeah.
I learnt them the hard way.
Yep.
So now as an adult, I'm very reserved with friendships and I often get this comment that I'm quite cold.
Yet I still slipped through.
It's because I had no one.
Yeah, well, actually, at the time, that's true. That kind of is true, actually. Yeah.
I was abandoned.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, no, I'm much more reticent to make friends. And I was saying to G the other day, it's like, isn't it funny as you become an adult and grow older, your friendship circles, G was one of those people that had like millions of friends.
Yeah.
He's like always had all the friends.
But G's also one of those people who'll do anything for people. And so how many of those friends were actually friends in return?
Well, he made that comment to
Right.
me. He was like, he would be the person that would go to people's houses and hang out and catch up and bring the beers, whatever.
And put in all the effort.
Yeah. And then one day he was like, hang on a minute. No one ever comes to my house. I'm not going to go. And then none of them came.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck these guys.
Yeah.
But I think we all go through that and you get to a point where you realize you've got your handful of your close people.
And that's the thing. When you're younger, you think it's all about having lots of friends. When you're older, it's about having a few true friends.
Yeah, the quality as opposed to the quantity.
Yeah.
But I think COVID did that for so many of us. That was a
yeah.
big cracking open for most people.
So most of what we call friends are actually just friendships of convenience. So it's either
proximity.
Well, and proximity. And I'm using that in the same sense. They're the person that you dislike the least at work becomes your work friend.
Yeah.
And then if you work there for long enough, you're like, oh no, we've known each other for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but are you actually friends?
Yeah.
Would you have given this person a second look or a second conversation in any other context? Same with school. Oh no, we went to school together. We've known each other for 20 years. So?
Yeah.
Right? Does that really mean
friends?
anything? And what COVID did was it highlighted that actually we have a complete values mismatch with a lot of these people who were just there.
Yeah.
And so we became friends. And then enough time passed that we went, no, this is one of my longest time friends. Well, you don't share any values in common, but that doesn't normally come up all that much. COVID comes along, it all comes to the surface. And what we did was we got rid of a lot of friends of convenience and we replaced them with perhaps a smaller number, but with people that we actually share values with.
Well, that's also that sort of sunk cost fallacy. People go, oh, we've been friends for 20 years. We've been friends since high
I
school.
can't stop it. I can't piss them off now. I can't lose them now.
Yeah, I'm like, but where's the value in the friendship if you have to tread on eggshells to maintain it?
If you can't actually be yourself, then are they actually your friend?
Yeah. So it's a tough lesson, and I feel sad when people learn it later in life because I feel like it's an easier one to digest when you're younger. But yeah,
You got more time to recover.
Yeah. But I don't know. How do we get on to that topic?
But there's also, let me finish on this before we move on to whatever your next note is, and we are kind of low on time. But anyway,
What, 20 minutes?
Okay. So the value of a new friend diminishes over time. The older you get, the less time you have to benefit from having discovered a new friend. And the same thing is a new travel destination, a new hobby, changing careers.
Yeah.
The actual value of those things diminishes over time. Now, there is the reverse side, which is I'm running out of time, so I've got to get these things done that I wanted to do before I died. So there is that dynamic as well. But broadly speaking, when you're young, you want to go out and make lots of friends because the potential value in each of those friendships could be very high. You might find a spouse. You might find a lifelong friend. You might find a business partner. You might find any one of a number of different things. By the time you're in your 40s, you're kind of your phase is shifting now. The potential future value of a lot of those friendships is actually, relatively speaking, much lower. Yeah. And so the effort that you should be willing to put into finding new people should also be much lower because the payoff just isn't there. Same with traveling to new destinations or trying new hobbies. The reward of finding a hobby that you absolutely love when you're 15 is very high. You could turn it into a career. Yeah. You could do it for the rest of your life. Finding a hobby that you absolutely love when you're 60, well, that might have tremendous personal satisfaction and value. And I don't look down on that. My nana started playing cello, I think, when she was 50. And she ended up playing in a local orchestra. Yeah. Loved it. It was a beautiful part of her life for 30 years. Yeah. So I'm not saying that it has no value, but the relative value diminishes. Yeah. And so I think there is something natural about going for a lot of friends when you're younger. Yeah. And then actually just going, hang on, no. Cull.
I was going to bring up something quickly about dating as well. It's interesting. I've got a few people I know who are going through divorces and relationship breakdowns. And I've got a couple of friends who are still single and doing the whole there's no good men left. And I think, have I already told this story in the podcast? I've got a friend who's a little bit resentful that I'm now in a relationship.
You have mentioned that there is a bit of that going on, but I don't know the particular story you're thinking of.
Yeah, so there's a friend in particular, I won't obviously say names, but there's a friend who it's quite evident to me that ever since G's come into my life, this friend is now sort of a bit, right? Yeah. And I would say they're not particularly happy for me. Yeah. That's evident. Yeah. And the friendship has sort of gone a bit cold. And, I'll call, hey, how you going, whatever.
A little bit neglected.
Yeah, and I'm like, the phone calls don't get answered as often. The text messages take a couple of days to come back. I'm like, all right. Yep, got it.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. And that's fine. And then another friend of mine, I was telling this friend about this, and they're like, yeah, this friend's also single, and they're like, yeah, Carly, but because it hurts to look at it, you're happy. And when she said that, I almost was bowled over. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, like, it's hard to see your friend have what you want. And I was like, that's the sickest idea or concept I've ever. I understand it. It's jealousy. Yeah. I get it. But I was like,
it's different to jealousy. I think it heightens the pang. It heightens when the thing that you really want is only visible to you at a distance. Yeah. It's different to when it's visible to you right here, but it's still not yours.
It gives you a longing.
So I would defend that to some degree.
See, you're much more charitable than me, because I look at that and go, hang on a minute, I just proved that at my age, I'm significantly older than you, that I found my person.
It's possible, yeah.
Like, I would have thought that's a good thing, but you've instead interpreted it as a negative thing.
But it's still not them, and there can still be, depending on what their internal monologue is, they might still be very much convinced that that'll never happen to them, despite the fact that they've just watched it happen for you. And
so it's interesting because we're having this conversation, and she's like, oh, well, like it's easy for you, blah, 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 and you don't know. And I was like, well, stop right there. I met G when I was 38. Yeah. I had been single for 12 years. Yeah. I know all about single tax. I know all about the dating life. I know all about the dating apps. Don't you dare disqualify me because now I have a relationship. And it was interesting because obviously this is a female discussion. Oh, there's no good guys. I'm like, there actually are. There actually are. They're just not where you think they are.
They're either in your friend zone or they're too short to make it through the filters that you apply to the dating apps.
Or, they're also not on the dating apps because they're just as jilted as you and they're just as frustrated as you.
So there's a great podcast. I think we may have mentioned it before. I can't think of the name of it. But they have a panel of girls and a panel of guys, and they sort of talk about dating and love and all that. And one of the points that gets made fairly often on that podcast is just how delusional the whole 666 thing is. I'll only be 6 feet tall, six-figure income, 6 inches. Yeah. And I'm almost there. I'm like, I'm 6 feet tall. I'll have a 6-figure income soon, and I'm 6 centimeters. So, what's the difference?
I thought you were going to say 6 millimeters. I'd be like, that's about accurate.
And well, you wouldn't know. Let's not pretend that you would know.
I don't want to talk about this. It's like discussing this with my brother. That's wrong.
But if you want a 6-figure income, 6 feet tall, single male, you're pushing into 1% of the dating pool already.
Well, I heard a really interesting argument about this where was I watching this? I can't remember, but they were talking about, it was on Tim Pool actually. They were talking about, because there's now articles in the Times and in a lot of these left-leaning publications.
Where have all the men gone?
Correct. This is the sentiment now. Women are in their 40s and they want kids and they can't find the man. Yeah. And I'm just going to paraphrase kind of what they said, but essentially the article was saying that, men don't want to settle down. I'm like, no. They already have. Yeah. You went and like this can be modern feminism. Maybe we can talk about this for a bit. But like modern feminism said that women could have it all. You can go and have the career and you can still get the guy and the kid eventually. Go do this first, right? And we know the opposite is true. And I'm turning 40 soon, and the idea of me having a newborn now, I'm like, absolutely not. No disrespect if you have. It just for me, that's not.
It's hard work. I can tell you that as someone who had a newborn at 40.
Yeah. Now that I'm 40, I would be like, have your kids when you're in your early 20s. Do it when you're young and you've got plenty of time.
And you got energy.
Yeah. But not only that, if I was to have a kid now, it would take me out of the workforce for what, 4, 5, maybe 6 years?
Well, yeah.
To properly, to be a good mother, I'd be out of the workforce. Anyway, so what they were basically saying
they're going to come for you now.
Yeah, I know.
That comment.
It would. Like, to be a good mother, you need to be present. I'm sorry. Like, putting your kids in childcare. We've just seen this week, I'm not going to bring up the story, but you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
We just know that the childcare is a bit sus.
Outsourcing parenting has consequences.
Correct.
Yep.
And I like, we talked about the article. I'm not bringing it up, but you guys can know what we're alluding to. I just don't want to go into that. But anyway, so this whole thing on Tim Pool, he made a really good argument, and that is that a woman who is financially successful, whatever that looks like, right? Maybe it could be a small six-figure sum. She might have her own property and she's doing well for herself. She will not date a man who's doing less than she is.
Yeah.
She wants to date a man who's either her equivalent or above. Women always date up. And this is not me being judgmental. It's just the truth.
It's the truth, yeah.
A woman's not going to date someone who's earning $50,000 a year.
The only exception is if they're sufficiently up when it comes to wealth, then they'll date down when it comes to looks.
Yes.
But the wealth has to be there.
Yes, the wealth has to be there, but they won't date down for looks and wealth. No way.
No way.
And so what you have is women are making their dating pool smaller and smaller and smaller. And the more successful that woman, so for example, in America, she might be earning high six figures.
Yep.
She might be a millionaire. So she's only going to date another millionaire. But what happens when the woman now gets into the late 30s and the early 40s and the 50s? The man of her equivalent, the millionaire, can date the 20-year-old.
There's 25-year-olds throwing themselves at him.
Correct.
Yep.
So the man can date down because the ones down there don't care.
And I would wager, actually more important than the age difference, we younger or not, the woman who is soft and nurturing and enjoyable to
Less
be with,
combative.
to be with at a personal level, is the millionaire doesn't need your successable career. He doesn't need your success. He needs a woman to bring softness into his life, because that's what most men truly want.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but the big, strong boss lady who don't need no man is not the best candidate for that.
Well, that's, when you're in that sort of masculine energy, men have that surrounding them at work. They don't want that in the home.
I've got plenty of that. I don't need that. Yep.
And it was interesting because, obviously then going and reading the comments around this and seeing what women are saying, that's not true. All men are shit. Men are crap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you don't think that attitude actually harms you? That if all men are shit, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You will see only shit men.
I've recently made progress on this issue. I've stopped caring about those women.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Well, do you know
Have
what's
it your way.
interesting? You know what word's making a comeback? Spinster.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
I
making
wasn't
a
aware
comeback.
of this.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Because it is. What do you define these women as, financially independent, older, perhaps not likely to enter motherhood, highly educated, they're usually tertiary educated, self-sufficient, independent, and yet undateable.
Single. Yep.
Yeah, it's a spinster.
Yep.
And then what happens, I'm sorry, ladies, and you can come for me for this, those women are typically quite cynical,
Yep.
quite antagonistic, quite defensive, and they see themselves as a victim.
Yep.
And very lacking in the self-awareness department.
And we could have a debate. I don't think there's a point having a debate, but there would be a debate about, did they become that way because they got left behind, or is the fact that they were that way the reason why none of the men wanted to pick them up along the way?
I think it's nature versus nurture. I think a lot of these women were sold a false promise with feminism.
With feminism, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So disappointment can only be measured in terms of expectation. You cannot be, if you have no expectations, you cannot be disappointed.
Yeah.
What feminism is doing is making disappointment inevitable for
Yes.
women by giving them the expectation they can have everything.
That men need to be this, and if they're not, they're falling short. So therefore, you're always
and
disappointed.
if you can have everything, and if you don't have everything, it's a man's fault.
Yes.
They are creating, and what they're doing, and I've touched on this in another podcast with you, they're taking away the ability for you to have mutual success because they're framing you as being versus. It's me against you, even inside a relationship. And so therefore, if I've succeeded, I haven't succeeded thanks to you. I've succeeded in spite of you, which means it's not a shared success, which means that bonding never happens.
But there's all these new terms, and I'm not going to bring them up here, but there's all these new terminologies for all these like minor faux pas that a man can commit.
Microaggressions has become like, micro cheating and micro this and micro everything. Yeah.
And it's to the point where I'm like, hang on a minute, I need you to give me a booklet so I can understand what the rules are because you're creating more rules. Like this is like bureaucracy. There's all this red tape. Now there's all this red tape and all these expectations, and they're unspoken.
Yeah.
The man doesn't know these limitations exist. They have no idea. I'm gonna paint this in a different way. So G, prior to me, had a relationship that was exactly that. This person would sit him down at the end of the week and be like, here's all the things that you did wrong. And
I'm sorry, weekly performance reviews.
yeah, like
in a
KPIs.
relationship.
Yeah. And it was
Holy cow. I mean, she was obviously a cow, but yeah, wow.
and this person, like I've never met this person, so I'm not casting judgment, but was older.
Gosh.
Like older than me. And rather than pointing out all the nice things that G, like you've met G, and you know what this guy's
Love
like.
this guy. Too nice for his own good.
Fucking oath.
Yep.
I tell him that every day.
Yep.
Way too nice for his own good.
Yep.
And, and like, I have now been with this man a year. It's our anniversary next week.
Oh, congratulations.
And like, I know this man very well. I'm like, I'm sorry, all these things that she accused you of, I think are just a reflection of her own character because he's one of the most selfless people I know to the point where it annoys me.
Yep.
I love you, G, but you know. Anyway, and so yeah, performance reviews. And like in
That's
a
crazy.
Relationship,
That's crazy.
to the point where it's like, you know, she would store it up and then she'd be like, well, this one time here. And I do know women like this.
But there's also this thing of, you know, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yeah.
Like no man has ever been berated into his masculinity, into stepping up to becoming anyone's dream man.
Yeah.
That's never happened.
Yeah.
If you want to be married, if you want to be a queen, you need to be married to a king.
Yeah.
Which means you need to start treating him like a king before he is. It's that thing of, you know, dress for the job you want.
Yes.
Behave for the man, you know, treat
Yeah.
your man like he's the man that you want.
Yeah.
And that is going to inspire him in that direction far more than any amount of berating and judging ever will. There's enough of that out there in the world already. You create for your man the one place in the world where he doesn't get judged, where he actually gets appreciated and he actually gets seen and he can be safe and it's warm and it's soft. Create that place for him. He knows that he will not get that anywhere else. And he knows that because he hasn't experienced that anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like we don't get softness. We don't get warmth.
Yeah.
That's not a part of the masculine experience. You give that to your man for free, without conditions attached. He will know that he's never getting that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And he will lift his game in ways that no amount of berating or performance reviews will ever get out of any man.
Yeah. And when I have discussions, I don't know if this is the right conversation with the podcast, but fuck it, we're here. This is a couple of years ago now. A girlfriend of mine, she was one of the first of us to get married, got married younger and had kids younger than all of us. And she was, I think, at the 10-year mark. Yep. So like I said, a couple of years ago, but she was like sitting there ragging on her husband to us. And like we knew him very well. Like he was part of the friendship circle. And so it's kind of like someone sitting there bitching about the friend that's not sitting at the table. And, and you know, my other friends were all like, oh, you know, you poor thing. Oh, you know, it's shit that he did that. And I was like, hang on a minute, stop. And like, I believe this has been a good friend. Yeah. Now, some people would say I am antagonistic. And I, and I always have to play the devil's advocate. And I was like, but that's what makes me a good friend. Yeah. Because I'm calling you out on some bullshit. And I was like, so I'll give you an example. She used this as her example. You know, she'd be there doing the dishes because he hasn't done the dishes, and he'd come by and he just slaps her on the butt and he's like trying to get her to have sex. And I was like, and she was like, oh, you know, I'd actually just rather him dry the dishes because I'm sick of doing them. That was her attitude, right? And I was like, hey, well, stop, rewind. Let's have a look at this conversation for a second. He's playing with you. Mm-hmm. He's tapping you on the bum and saying, hey, those dishes can wait. Yep. Right now, my priority has been with you. Yep. That's what I think is more important. Correct. And you went, actually, no, these dirty dishes that will be inevitably back there in a couple hours.
So let's have the uncomfortable conversation.
Please do.
All right. So we all know that cheating is horrible and terrible, and because of what it says. If someone has sex with someone they're not married to or not in a relationship with, you know, breaking the rules of the relationship, what it says is that they don't love and care for the person that they're committed to. It means that their heart has gone elsewhere, that they can get aroused elsewhere. It says all of these things. All right. So what does it say if one partner within a relationship consistently refuses to have sex with their partner?
Well, you're weaponizing the love.
Well, it says all the same things.
Yeah.
It says, well, no, I'm no longer emotionally attached to you. I no longer find you attractive or sexy. All the things that you would feel is being said about you if your partner cheated with someone else, you're actually saying to them if you're consistently, relentlessly, I'm not saying you can't say no when you don't feel like it, but if you're just consistently shutting them down, blocking them, making it, you know, putting barriers in the way, that's a really common one in relationships, just making it hard for them to actually get to the point where, you know, there's always some excuse. If you're doing that to your partner, they are allowed to notice that.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to understand what that means and what you're saying.
You're tapping out.
You're tapping out. A silent divorce. Speaking of all the new phrases that are going around, you're giving them a silent divorce, which in my view is actually way worse than an actual divorce.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever been single and alone and you think that's bad, try being married and alone.
Yeah.
That's hell.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so you've either got to be in or just get out.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Set them free to go and find somebody who's actually going to be in
have an
with them.
amicable, like it doesn't have to be fire and brimstone. But to that friend I was talking about, I said to her, I was like, I just want you to reframe this and I'll just report back. Like, and I pulled her aside from the other friends because they were like, oh, Carly, that's bullshit. He's a piece of shit. And I was like, come here. And I was single, by the way. I've never been married. So I was giving this advice a few years ago. And I said to her, like, look, I'm going to give you some advice. And I want you to report back and tell me what happens.
Yep.
You got nothing to lose, right?
Yep.
She's like, oh, because she didn't want to get divorced. She was wondering why they were at such odds. And I was like, this is graphic, guys, but just enjoy me. Enjoy where I'm going with this. So I said to her, I'm like, next time he's in the shower, so this guy is a tradie, and he'd come home, dirty, whatever. I'm like, the first thing he does is he comes, says hi, kisses all the kids, and then he goes and has a shower. I'm like, when he's in the shower, you go into the shower and get in with him. And then...
It's good advice, ladies.
Yeah.
It's good advice.
And do a thing for the man.
Yep.
Right? Am I allowed to say this on the podcast?
I don't know. You are.
Give him a blowjob. That's what I said.
All right. There you go.
Good advice, ladies. And I said, for no other reason than because you actually want to. He's had a big day. He's just come home. He's not expecting it.
Yep.
And I was like, and tell me what happens.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know if I can do that because I'm so mad at him. I'm like, oh, well.
Then get divorced.
Do you want this relationship or not? I'm just giving you something to try. Tell me what happens. Anyway. And then she goes and does the thing. And she rings me 2 days later. She's like, Carly, I've got to tell you what's going on. I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready to say, oh, we've decided to have a divorce. And she's like, we've had the best sex in our life the last 2 days and we cannot keep our hands off each other. And I was like, interesting. And she's like, I just didn't worry about dinner that night. We ended up getting takeaway because we were just having so much fun and we were laughing and then we had a good chat. And he's like, I miss you.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. And I was like.
So notice that I miss you.
Yes.
He was experiencing a silent divorce.
Yeah.
She was gone inside of that marriage.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic relationship advice.
Because I said to her, I was like, it's not about the sexual act itself. I was like, it's the fact that you wanted to do something for him that you didn't get the benefit
Correct.
from.
Yeah.
It wasn't a mutually beneficial thing.
Yeah.
You were doing a thing that he was the only one that got something out of that.
And it doesn't have to be that. It can be you initiating
Yeah.
and putting some effort in and going, okay, how do I make this an experience for him, even though it doesn't have to be that specifically?
Yeah.
How do I make this an experience for him that tells him that I love him?
Yeah.
Right. And so often I hear feminists in particular saying, oh, well, women shouldn't have to have sex unless he's talked to her and paid all the bills and done his share of the housework. And he's got this list of chores.
Yeah.
Like there's a cost.
Yeah.
You know who else charges a price for sex?
Prostitutes.
A whore, right? So if you want to be a whore within your own marriage, create a price for sex.
Yeah.
If you want to have an actual relationship, then you recognize that in a marriage or in that relationship, sex is actually a part of the bonding.
Yeah.
It's not a part of the chores and the life. It's actually a part of the core of the relationship. And realize that you are no more justified saying, well, I'll have sex after he, talks to me and gives me a nice gift and what have you.
Yeah.
That's no more justified than him saying, well, I'll give her a nice gift and talk to her after she has sex.
Yeah.
No one's right
Then you're in
here.
a stalemate.
And no one's right and everyone's losing.
Yeah.
No one's winning at that point.
Yeah. Well, that when you start to weaponize those things that should be running freely in a relationship, that's when it's sort of getting towards the end. And it's interesting. Like I saw my parents go through one of the most horrific divorces. Like I've told that story before. And my parents, as volatile as their relationship was and my upbringing was, there was definitely moments where I was like, my parents are going to be together forever.
Yeah.
So when they did decide to get divorced, we were all like, wow, okay, they're actually pulling the thing. It came out later that my dad had an affair. And I said to my dad, because he was like, do you want me to tell you the truth? I was like, nope, I don't want to know anything. I just, ugh.
No.
And I've told you that divorce story. It was really bad. But in hindsight, looking back, even though I don't have the full play-by-play, this person said this and this happened, I actually know when it all happened.
Yeah.
So my dad got made redundant from his job and he's a boomer, right? So he had been at that job. He was at Caterpillar for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And they phased him out.
That's all he knew.
Yeah. And so his entire identity was wrapped up in that. My dad has traveled the world extensively because
his ability to provide.
Yeah.
His status as a man.
Yep, all of it, right? And my mum had multiple different jobs. She was in makeup. She used to work all the counters at Maya, like, Christian Dior, Lancome, all that. And then she became a sales rep. So my mum was used to like chopping and changing of jobs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas my dad, that's all he had. And, it was a emasculating moment for him. And he went through a really serious battle of depression. I was probably 14, 15.
Yeah.
And it hit him hard,
Yeah.
really hard. And it's only with hindsight I look back and go, holy shit, I underestimated what was happening there.
Yeah.
And it's, and I don't say this to make light of it. I do think my dad was quite suicidal back then. Now that I look back, I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And we weren't really talking about depression back then.
And it's not the kind of thing any man would allow himself to show to his own kids.
No, and my dad completely withdrew. And I didn't have a good relationship with my father growing up. We were literally at odds with each other. So I resented him even more. And now with hindsight and being a little bit more mature, I can look back and go, that was my dad's weakest moment. Yeah. And my mum humiliated him on top of it. Yeah. Oh, you can't get out of bed. You're lazy. You're not even trying. You're berating him, thinking that would motivate him.
And that illustrates the point precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Imagine a woman who went the other way.
Yeah.
And just got into bed next to him and gave him a cuddle.
Yeah.
And said, "Hey, listen, when you're ready, I've got breakfast out here for you. We're going to be okay. I'm with you. I believe in you. I know that you're going to figure this out."
Yeah.
Like, imagine that experience for the man and what kind of a husband the wife would then end up with versus... Speaking of dumping quickly and running, we've been now going for, I believe, a cumulative total of about 3 hours between the two segments, because we had to stop for me to have a little heart attack, and I do have to drive all the way home tonight, so I'm going to have to call time on this fun.
Do you want to call the last bit, which was Jacinta Allan's voice to Parliament? Or are you going to do a video on this?
Well, I've already done a video on this. You can go to my YouTube and you'll find it. It went out.
Irrelevant. In the bin.
I literally released that while I was in the car being driven down to Melbourne to do this podcast this morning.
Oh, there you go.
So go to @Topher Field to hear everything that you need to know about the absolute clusterfuck that is going to be the Victorian voice to Parliament.
Whatever. Honestly, at this point, I see Jacinta Allan's face. I'm like...
I'll make this one point. Imagine being the Premier of Victoria, a state that is rapidly going bankrupt, overrun by criminal, youths, can't deliver on time or on budget on any of its infrastructure projects, and has a litany of other problems, potholes just being one of them, and you decide that the battle you want to fight is over a voice to Parliament, which was rejected by your own constituents in your state 54% to 46% less than 2 years ago. Imagine being that person and how completely out of touch. I mean, we talked about Jeff Bezos and all of that. How out of touch does Jacinta Allan have to be in this state, in these circumstances, with the voice having gone down in Victoria less than 2 years ago, and be like, no, I've got an idea.
The temperature has only gotten colder in regards to that sort of stuff.
Correct.
One quick question before we go. With the voice thing, is she just trying to appeal to her diehards? Like, so you talk about their cabinet, right, and all the people that are around them. They're obviously in this echo chamber, and Daniel Andrews used to have focus groups. I assume Jacinta still has her own, but all of these people are just basically self-flagellating, basically going, no, they definitely want the woke. No, they definitely care about this.
They're not self-flagellating. I can tell you that they're self-pleasuring. Absolutely, but also this is what happens once someone believes that it's a one-party state. This is what I talk about with California.
Yeah.
California is a one-party state.
Yeah.
The dynamic between a two-party state and a one-party state could not be more extreme. If there are two different parties vying for power in a state, then the way that you win is by putting up a leader who appeals to the center and putting up policies that appeal to the swing voters that are going to be somewhere in between where the two parties are. So a two-party state naturally self-corrects at least between where those two parties are. Now, what we've seen in Australia, of course, is both of those parties are changing and moving to the left, but nevertheless, they have to keep on fighting over the people in the middle. As soon as it's a one-party state, what that means is the party, in the case of California, the Democrats, or in the case of Victoria, the Labor Party, they assume that they're going to win. They assume we're going to win the next election. What that means now is it's all about who gets to the top of the party. And the consideration of whether that person appeals to the centre or not is no longer a consideration. So now it's about the factional battle within the Labor Party itself. And that's what Jacinta Allan has won by getting to the top in the first place. And that's who she's appealing to. Yeah. She is shoring up her base and cementing power in the same way that Daniel Andrews did when he was at the top. She is cementing power and coalescing power around herself by continuing to appeal to the base and deliver to the most extreme elements of her party what they want. And she's doing that because she believes that the middle don't matter anymore, that they're going to win anyway. And she might be right. But she's given to Brad Batten and the Liberal Party of Victoria a battleground that they
Yeah.
can actually fight on. Because
I don't know if they're going to though. I don't want to give this premonition, but I actually do think Labor's going to win next year.
well, I'm not sure. I argue in my video that this is a gift to the Liberal Party, but it's also their final chance.
But they've had multitude of gifts.
Correct. This is their last chance. And if they fail on this point, then I think Victoria will be a one-party state.
The issue with the Liberal Party is that they care more about this whole prosciutto deeming thing, and now the challenging the, she's got the money and now she wants to. I don't even care anymore.
So
That matters more to them.
people make the mistake of saying that the Victorian Liberal Party won't fight for anything. I think that's actually really slanderous, because what we've seen very clearly is that they will fight very, very hard to try and maximise the number of testicular injuries that occur in women's sports.
Yeah.
They're very willing to fight for that.
Yeah.
And so I think on that basis alone, they should win. They should be the premier of the state,
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, I find it so exhausting, and I get so bored talking about it because it's just the same shit. And just on the voice thing, I mean, we've said woke is dead, and I know we've got to wrap up. I'm trying. We shouldn't have talked
You're
about
very
sex.
trying.
No comment. Just this week they've had a lot of discussion around people are exhausted by the whole welcome to country,
Yep.
and people had enough. That's a street sweeper was able to take the council to task
Unfair
on
dismissal.
that.
Yep.
Yeah. I think there's a fatigue, that's the word of the moment, with all of this stuff, this performative stuff. And like you've said before, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yep.
it's getting to the point where people are genuinely worried about where their food's coming from, how they're going to pay their bills.
Paying the power bill. Yeah.
And, the last thing people care about right now is acknowledging the colonisation of the country.
The childless lords in high towers that I'm using on heraldry. Just to go back to my favourite Tolkien quote, because I have to bring that up every single episode.
Yes.
You bring up Bonnie Blue, I bring up Tolkien.
I didn't even bring her up this
You did. You mentioned her earlier.
because you said something about dicks slapping their knees.
I'm sorry. I am enjoying
You're
that a
the
little
one that
too
takes
much.
it down into the gutter.
I'm enjoying this moment a little too much.
Wow, and we thought we were taking this
And
podcast
now,
somewhere.
look, I'm blaming it on the Duratus. I'm blaming it. I am drunk on drugs right now. I'm off my head on meth. That's what it is.
Oh shit!
I should take meth before every show.
We should end the show now before we get in trouble.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Probably
on
too
that
late for
note,
that.
I think we did
Thanks for
actually get
watching.
to everything. The last thing I need to tell you guys is to please share the show.
Yes.
if you can stomach sharing this one. Last week's episode was a bit dry, so hopefully this one's a little
Well,
more
this
fun.
one was a little more spicy.
A little bit more moist.
spicy. Well, yes, just a little bit. Yes, medication works wonders for me. Share the show. Follow at Carlz J Soda.
Yep.
Follow at Topher Field.
Yep.
And make sure you're following the Oddcast HQ
HQ
on YouTube so we can get those subscriber numbers up.
And join us live on Mondays at 7 p.m. on YouTube. At
Definitely.
The Oddcast. The Oddcast? The Oddcast.
The Oddcast.
The Oddcast HQ.
And also next week, and probably not for the live, I'm not sure, but for this show next week, we should have some samples of our merch.
Brilliant.
To show people.
Yes, and
Fingers
then you guys
crossed.
will buy them.
Yes. So that we can repay all the equipment that we've bought.
Do you know what she said to me last night? It's like you need to do a spreadsheet and type in everything that you bought to see, I was like, I actually don't want to do
Yeah,
that.
I don't want to cry. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
I
but
know
no.
it's a lot. I don't need
No.
to ask.
No.
So anyway, on that note, guys, we will say goodbye. Have a good night.
See you
and
later.
Yeah, bye. Goodbye.
Bye.